day, but feeling warm in any sunny breaks.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Wednesday, the 6th of August. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Now, Labour's one in, one out. Is it shake it all about? Well, that deal appears to be unravelling. Turns out migrants could dodge deportation by claiming to be underage, or that their human rights are under attack.
Remember the £22 billion black hole Rachel Reeves blamed on the Conservatives? Well, that black hole seems to be multiplying, and it now could be a whopping £50 billion. Our record tax hikes on the cards.
Well, remember too, when Rachel Reeves said last year's budget's £40 billion of tax rises was a one-off and wouldn't happen again, well, it looks like it will.
And yet more bad news for the government, as it's revealed thousands of company bosses have fled the United Kingdom since the budget.
Elsewhere, Prince Harry has hit back as he faces criticism after a bitter dispute with a charity he co-founded went public. A source tells GB News he is devastated.
And Bill and Hillary Clinton have been dragged into the Epstein investigation as US lawmakers demand they testify under oath about their links to convicted sex offender and his inner circle.
And we're calling all beer lovers today. Yes, the Great British Beer Festival is back, and it's bigger than ever at the NEC in Birmingham. We're there.
Well, there are hundreds of beers here on offer, thousands of people. That sounds like a challenge to me. I'm off to the bar.
Oh, there's only one Jack Carson. Although I have to say,
there's only one Jack Carson.
Looking at that video of the pint being pulled there, I was getting a bit thirsty. I know it's only Wednesday, but it is August.
Well, it is past midday now, technically, 12:01.
Is that the rule? I thought the rule was 5 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, we play by different rules, don't we?
In my last job, we used to have a sign on the wall saying it's 5 o'clock on Nevis, which is an island just near America. So that was that.
Says a lot about your old employer, Tom, and perhaps yourself. I don't know. You might have put it up there, mightn't you? But yes, this one-in, one-out deal, infuriating. The more you read about it, the more you find out that it doesn't quite stack up in our favour as Brits. The fact that France, we have to tell them everything about the people we want to send them back. We have to give them all the details of every single security check. They're allowed to just veto on all sorts of grounds whether they want to take a migrant from our shores. Whereas the other way around, we just have to accept it, it seems.
And let's not forget, these are migrants who have spent months, in many cases, in France. They've spent about 5 minutes in the United Kingdom, and suddenly France is able to say, that bloke looks a bit dodgy, don't want him.
Well, exactly. I mean, we have to take them.
I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, should we start escorting boats from the United Kingdom up to Iceland or something? Is that how this merry-go-round should go? Because it does seem that the French Coast Guard and indeed Navy do escort these ships right until they get into our territorial waters.
Leave the Icelandic people out of this. They're good people.
Maybe we need to start escorting these people to the next sort of El Dorado that they want to go to.
Well, yeah, maybe. GBNews.com/your say. What do you make of it all? We're going to get more details, find out exactly what this deal means and what it doesn't mean after the headlines with Tatiana.
Emily, thank you very much. The top story, some breaking news the day after the government announced the signing of its migrant returns deal with France. People smugglers have launched hundreds more migrants into the Channel. The Border Force vessel Typhoon picked up the first group of at least 60 migrants just after 11:30 a.m. The vessel is now en route to Dover Harbour. This all coming from our Home and Security editor, Mark White, who also tells us a second Border Force vessel, Ranger, is picking up another group of migrants, and more migrant boat launches are also expected this afternoon. It says illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation, but Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition suggestions that that is the case. Under terms of the agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say that they're under the age of 18. This is just one of the potential loopholes which could be exploited and threatens to undermine the government's attempt to smash the gangs. Shadow Culture Minister Joe Robertson spoke to GB News Breakfast.
I think people have become very, very weary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people. One in, one out. I mean, it said if it does what it says on the tin, one in, one out isn't going to reduce the number of migrants in this country, because one in means there'll be one out the other side. So I don't think it's going to work. We don't even have numbers. The government aren't even telling us how many people will be deported under this scheme. So if they can't even give us the numbers, how do we know whether it's successful or not?
In other news, Prince Harry's facing criticism from the charity watchdog after a dispute at a charity he co-founded was allowed to spill into the public eye. The Charity Commission has issued a formal action plan for Centre Bali, the Duke's charity supporting children and young people in southern Africa. It flagged leadership confusion and poor governance, but found no evidence of bullying or misconduct by Prince Harry, despite claims from the charity's current chair. A spokesperson for Harry says the findings clear him, but claims the real damage will be felt by the children that the charity supports. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. In a warning, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research said the Chancellor is now on course to miss targets and spending promises as finances plunge deeper into the red. The report has fuelled speculation over how the government may look to boost tax revenues in the autumn, including mounting rumours of a possible wealth tax. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. The committee is seeking information about the deceased financier's history after President Trump decided against releasing more federal files despite widespread backlash and pressure from within his own party. Donald Trump has denied prior knowledge of Epstein's crimes, claiming he ended their relationship a long time ago. Epstein died in a New York jail cell in 2019, awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. US political analyst Eric Ham spoke to GB News.
Well, when we see these House committees, and of course we know how partisan and of course political they have become recently, it's unclear if in fact this is an effort to try to get more information about Epstein. Of course, we know both he was in jail and of course his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has already been convicted. So in terms of actually trying to determine or find more information, not just about victims, but of course perpetrators, perhaps that's what we're seeing. But again, this is a case where you would expect those prosecutors who have worked the Epstein case would have far more information about the breadth and depth of Epstein's antics, more so than perhaps some of the people that we're seeing being called, which suggests that this is purely political and more political theater on top of that.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin is meeting with US President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow. It comes as US President Donald Trump has set a deadline of Friday for Russia to agree to end the Ukraine war or face new sanctions. After arriving in Moscow today, Mr. Witkoff was met by Presidential Special Representative Kirill Dmitriev. Donald Trump has described the meet as pivotal in determining whether the United States goes ahead with new sanctions against Russia. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3286 and €1.1476. The price of gold, £2,530 and 25 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,156 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past midday. Now, illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use human rights as a loophole to avoid deportation.
Yeah, good thing we have a lawyer as our Prime Minister, eh? Anyway, under terms of the UK's agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or if they say they're under 18.
Well, this is just one of the potential loopholes which could be exploited and threatens to undermine the government's attempts to stop the boats. As the one-in, one-out deal with France only came into effect yesterday, the question is, how can the government ensure they'll get a grip on illegal migration?
Well, it's a good thing we've got our Home and Security editor, Mark White, on the scene for us. Mark, you're down in Dover, keeping an eye on things. What's your assessment of this scheme now? We're hearing more and more about it, and in my mind, it appears to be unravelling.
I think they are learning some tough lessons that the Conservatives learned when they were in the process of trying to strike this deal with Rwanda, which would see the removal of asylum seekers to that third country, and it was subject, of course, to many challenges over the course of a number of years, which meant that before the Conservatives lost office in the last election, they were not able to enact that policy, and the Labour government may have felt that their process of trying to return people to France would be easier. But not a bit of it. We know that the human rights lawyers are very adept, and all the activist groups are just supremely sort of talented and able, if you like, to be able to work their way around all of the potential loopholes that they can to ensure the best possible outcome for those that they represent. They've been doing it for years. Frustrating attempts, of course, to return asylum seekers, not just even as part of the Rwanda deal, but just to return those asylum seekers who may have been turned down for asylum to their home countries. So it's a difficult path that Labour is now going to have to try to tread here as it looks to enact this deal with France. As minute a deal as it is, we know it's only in the first instance going to be a very small number of migrants who are sent over to France as part of this deal.
We appear to have very little control over who is returned to this country. In terms of the information we get about those individuals, oh, bless you,
excuse me,
and in terms of the information that we send to the French about those we're sending over. So by my understanding, we have to send all the information we know about an individual that we want to deport back to France, whereas the French don't seem to have to send us the same level of information about those who are coming this way.
No, indeed. And we can give you some breaking news. Excuse me.
Dear. Must be pollen in the air.
Pollen count down here in Dover today. I do apologise. We can give you some breaking news with regard to the situation out in the Channel today. If you like a direct response to the announcement that this deal between France and the UK for a returns agreement has been signed, well, people smugglers have begun pushing out hundreds of migrants into the English Channel. Again, the Border Force vessel Typhoon has just picked up the first load of around 60 migrants, we think. That's heading back to Dover Harbour now and should be here at Dover Harbour within the next half hour. And then the other Border Force vessel, Ranger, that's on duty today is out there picking up a second load of migrants. And our sources tell us that we are expecting more migrant boat launches today because the conditions are good, because the people smugglers know that on days like this, they can get across the Channel quite easy.
And we have already seen a huge number of people already attempt to make the journey today. It seems like if there was to be a deterrent effect of this small chance of being returned to France, at least how things are so far, we're not really seeing much evidence of that.
No, I mean, we might be a bit too soon in the process to, and the government, I'm sure, would argue that, to look at any tangible benefits in terms of a deterrent. But I think, you know, going forward, the calculation is always going to be that if you are sent across to the UK on a small boat, the chances of you being returned to France are very negligible, a 95% chance. It seems, in the first instance anyway, that you will not be returned to France. Those are very good odds for people who've paid thousands of pounds, who've travelled thousands of miles and taken many risks in that process. The likelihood, the small likelihood of being returned is one I don't think that's going to really deter anyone.
Yeah.
OK, well, Mark White, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Thank you for soldiering on through those sneezes. But I know it is involuntary, of course, because you do have a deep allergy to BS, and we're having to report, of course, on the finer details of how this scheme may or may not work.
Bit cheeky. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mark. We'll speak to you a little bit later on. And France can just veto anyone that they don't want to take back on all sorts of different grounds. I mean, it's not adding up to me, but we're going to speak to the human rights lawyer and journalist Joshua Rosenberg on all of this. Joshua, as with most of our attempts to stop illegal migration, lawyers can get in the way. Does it look as though this deal has lots of legal loopholes that immigration lawyers can get stuck into?
No, I don't think so. I think that the government has anticipated some of the loopholes. So, for example, if you look at the provision regarding human rights claims, yes, the United Kingdom has to confirm that the person who's to be returned to France does not have an outstanding human rights claim, but that includes somebody whose human rights claim has been certified under United Kingdom law as clearly unfounded. So if the UK says that this person may be claiming claiming some human rights benefit, but this is clearly unfounded, well, that person can't use that claim to stop being removed back to France.
But we have seen claim after claim that, to you or I, we may think is unfounded or indeed silly, that has actually granted people indefinite leave to remain, whether it's access to chicken nuggets or the ability for a convicted paedophile to see his own children. I mean, all of these things have been used for people to stay in this country. But I think most voters in the country would say, well, that's ridiculous, but that wouldn't fit that exemption that you set out there.
Some of those things have been tried, but not necessarily all of them have succeeded in court. But if you think about human rights claims in these circumstances, the general one, and that's where you refer to seeing your children, is the right to private and family life. Now, it's unlikely that somebody who's arrived on a small boat in the United Kingdom is going to have family connections with the United Kingdom, apart from any member of their family that's travelled with them. And that person can have their dependents, their spouses, their family members sent back with them to France. So that is unlikely to work. The other main allegation that people make in human rights cases is that they're going to be subjected to torture or inhuman or degrading treatment. Well, there's no reason to suppose that they're going to be treated inhumanly in France, if that's where they've just come from, any more than there is any suggestion that they're going to be treated inhumanly in the United Kingdom.
So you believe they'll be deported before they're able to then challenge a legal decision?
That's
because
right.
we see a lot of that, don't we? It's not just the first answer taken, is it?
You're absolutely right. They'll be removed before their legal proceedings are over. Now, there is some discussion about this. There's a story running on the Times website about this at the moment. The headline is, Lisa Nandy, migrants will have human rights claims heard in France. Now, that's not quite right, but what the provision in the treaty says is that their human rights claim can be heard in the United Kingdom even if they are in France. Article 10 says France confirms it has no legal or diplomatic objection to the giving or taking of evidence from within its jurisdiction for the purposes of legal proceedings in the United Kingdom. In other words, you may have a claim in the UK, but you'll have to fight it from France.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I suppose ultimately...
So hang on, our criminal justice system has to deal with people who are still in France. I mean, this is going to... The time, resources, the money, everyone's going to want to launch a claim because their primary goal is to get to the United Kingdom, surely.
These are people who were in the United Kingdom, have been sent back to France, have brought a challenge while they were in the United Kingdom, and the question is whether they should stay in the United Kingdom while that's dealt with, and no, the treaty says that they can fight it from France.
How much of this is all academic? Because ultimately, at the initial stages, we understand this is just going to be 50 people a week. I mean, if this was thousands upon thousands of people, we'd run into all of these edge cases that we're discussing now. I mean, it might well be that it's not actually a particular burden for our legal system because so few people are actually being sent back to France.
That's right, and you would expect the Home Office to take measures to ensure that these cases are heard quickly if we're dealing with small numbers. It might be more difficult, as you say, if and when this takes off and if it's successful and if there are more challenges. But certainly you can be sure that the Home Office will be trying to make sure these cases go through quickly, and it's fair to say that some of the loopholes that you've talked about have at least been considered.
I just don't think they're going to be dealt with quickly, though. I'm just looking at the end of 2024, there were 42,000 asylum seekers awaiting an appeal hearing after their initial claims were rejected. We're just adding on top of that. I mean, the delays. I don't think it's going to be this smooth process. I mean, one can hope.
Well, that's a fair point. The delays are appalling, and the government has failed to put the necessary resources in, this government and the previous government, although it's not as easy as that. You can't just turn on a tap. But if we're talking about the relatively small numbers that are going to be involved in this pilot scheme, as I say, I would think the Home Office would take every step to ensure those are dealt with very quickly.
OK, well, Joshua Rosenberg, human rights lawyer and journalist, really appreciate your time and your expertise this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
OK, well, in other news, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn budget to plug a now £50 billion black hole.
Well, it all comes as new figures reveal that around 300,000 more savers will have to pay tax on their saving interest.
Well, joining us in the studio is GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster on this. So it was 22 billion for a while, the financial black hole, and that was the Conservatives' fault. Fast forward to now, we're being warned that that black hole has multiplied to 50 billion.
Yes, so 40 billion plus Rachel Reeves ideally likes to have about 10 billion headroom. So it doesn't feel that long since last year's budget, the £22 billion black hole that Labour said they'd found from the Tories, that she had this huge tax-rising budget, £40 billion, and she tried to reassure everybody saying, this is a one-off event. I'm not going to come back for anything like this again. Fast forward, the government have failed to get through several of their own policies because of rebellions from their own backbenchers, winter fuel allowance, benefits. That's put up borrowing costs substantially. And the growth, the holy grail that we're all searching for and have been really since the financial crisis, I had precious little of it. The Labour, before the election, said that all the money for everything they were pledging was going to come from growth. Again, the economy is pretty much flatlining, growth of about 1% a year, not going to get us very far. So higher borrowing, less growth, that's created a new fiscal black hole, which is all on this current government. They can't get away with blaming the Tories for this. So she's got three choices. She can break her fiscal rules. Well, the markets, I don't think, will stand for that. She can cut spending further, but spending plans were already very, very tight after the first couple of years. Or she can put up taxes. Now, this black hole is the equivalent of 5p on income tax. They have said categorically that they won't put up income tax, national insurance or VAT, taxes on working people, as they say. But given that 2/3 of all the money the government gets in is from those three taxes, that means she's going to have to make lots of other very difficult choices that will affect particular groups. Hence what we saw with the farmers. I think top of the list will be the personal allowance on tax thresholds, which the Tories froze for years, which is a tax rise on income tax, let's face it, but it's not called that.
It's a stealth tax.
It's a stealth tax. It's currently was extended to 2028. I think that would be an obvious target to extend that.
Catherine, it's interesting you raise that, because in her first budget, back in October or November last year, Rachel Reeves toyed around with this idea. I've got her words in front of me here. She says, I've come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their pay slips. I'm keeping every single promise of tax that I made in our manifesto, so there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax and national insurance thresholds beyond the decisions made by previous governments. That was her big rabbit out of the hat, saying, look, I'm going to end the freezes, we're going to return to operating in line with inflation. Otherwise, in her words, that would be breaching a manifesto commitment. And yet now all the speculation is she's going to U-turn on that very promise, which in her own words would be breaking a manifesto commitment.
Well, yes, but before the general election, they basically said that before, beyond VAT on school fee, private school fees, taxes on non-doms, that was really all there was going to be in terms of tax rises. Rishi Sunak, if you remember, said, mark my words, Labour will put up your taxes. They said it's all going to come from growth. Growth is not easy to get, and many would say that some of the things that the government have done are depressing growth. For example, putting national insurance rise on employers, which ultimately makes it harder for businesses. It effectively is a tax on working people. So
how are they going to spin this, though, Catherine? Because on the face of it, it looks pretty dire. It does appear as though the government is gearing up for more tax hikes. I think cutting public spending isn't really in the Labour Party's DNA, is it? So they don't want to be seen to do that. In fact, they continue to talk about big spending pledges at the moment, seemingly very often indeed. So how are they going to spin this? International pressures, Donald Trump, tariffs, I don't know.
I think that will be a lot of it. The world has changed. The world is more dangerous. Yes, because of Russia, Ukraine, also because of Trump and the tariffs. And that is true. And there's pledges we have made on defence, you know, ratcheting up to 5% ultimately. Very expensive pledges. But look, I think also this government hasn't always made choices which many economists feel are wise, but also, you know, the Tories cut 4p off national insurance before the last election, hoping it would make people vote for them. It didn't work. They got no credit for it, but it did make things extra hard for Labour coming in. And of course, they don't want to reverse those because they've said explicitly they won't put those taxes
Well,
on.
Catherine Forster, thank you very much indeed. We're going to move on because home ownership, apparently just a fantasy for millions now.
Yes, a new survey shows that a big drop in renters saving for deposits, blaming, of course, those rising rents.
So we're asking, is buying a home out of reach for this generation, or do we just need to rethink how we save and spend? Are young people complaining too much, essentially?
Too many avocado sandwiches. Well, we're joined now by the property expert, Russell Quirk. Russell, thanks so much for being with us. This is, of course, a big debate that happens almost year on year. And yet it is true. I mean, rents have shot through the roof over the last few years. And this sort of young generation that are looking to buy their first home, it's more out of reach than ever.
Well, no, it's not, Tom, actually. And if you look at, yes, rents have gone up, but rents always go up. Rents typically go up by something between 3, 4, 5% on an annual basis. Obviously, it would help if successive governments hadn't failed to build enough homes to allow supply into the private rental sector, then which would balance rents and stop demand exceeding supply. It would also help if we had a sane immigration policy, frankly, where we didn't have 700,000 people in terms of extra mouths to feed from a housing perspective every year. But leaving all that to one side, I don't know where these prospective first-time buyers are spending their money, because yes, rents are going up, but so are wages. Wages are going up by between 5 and 6% per annum, which is, funnily enough, more than the rate of rent increase. And this notion that no one can save a deposit, there are plentiful mortgages out there where you can borrow 95% of the price of the property, even the return of the 100% mortgage in recent weeks. So they only, and I know this is a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, relatively it's not, they need to save something around £20,000 to £25,000 for a substantial deposit on the average house in Britain, which is about £280,000.
Russell, do you accept that 50 years ago, even 40 years ago, the average salary would only need to save 3 or 4 times their salary to buy the average house? And now that is closer to 10 or 11 times the average salary that needs to be saved in order to buy the average house. That inaffordability ratio has expanded massively.
No, it hasn't, because in affordability terms, what you're forgetting are interest rates. So interest rates when I bought my first property when I was 18, back in 1988, were 12%. Interest rates now are 4% and falling. So we have interest rates that are 66% cheaper now in real terms than they were 20 or 30 years ago. So the cost of a mortgage and servicing that mortgage, Tom, and therefore of affordability is much, much, much cheaper. But let me just tell you,
in percentage terms, but here's the problem with that argument.
No, in cash terms. In affordability terms.
In affordability terms, if you've got 4% on a £350,000 property, that is a very, very different beast to 3%, to 12% even, on a £70,000 property.
Well, no, the reality is, yes, house prices have gone up typically by about 5% per annum over the last 30, 40 or 50 years. But my point is that if interest rates have commensurately reduced and the loan is therefore much, much cheaper per pound borrowed, then that's why we end up in a situation now where actually first-time buyers can afford their home. And look, let me just hit you with some facts, inconvenient, Tom, as they may be. And that is that some 350,000 first-time buyers bought properties in 2024. That is almost highest. There you go then. There you go. That is one of the highest levels that Britain has ever seen. We are now seeing in recent years up to 50% of all home purchases in Britain are from first-time buyers. So forgive me, I'm not lamenting the plight
Also,
of the
Russell,
first-time buyer.
let's
They're
be
doing
frank,
fine, thank you.
Let's be frank, there's a lot of middle-class people in their 20s and 30s who complain endlessly about how they can't afford to buy a house. But then you have a look at their social media, and they've been on about 4 holidays, been to 3 festivals. They do, eat their avocado on toast.
Well, they've got a BMW lease and
they choose to spend their money
account.
differently.
They do indeed. And look, it is the old avocado sandwich dynamic, but also Netflix accounts, trying to keep up with Kim Kardashian and Harry Styles when it comes to the fashion stakes via being obsessed with Instagram and what other people are looking like. Netflix, buying £2,000 Apple iPhones every year just to keep up with the Apple
The boomers
Joneses.
didn't do that, Tom. The boomers didn't go on 4 holidays a year at the age of 25.
Here's the thing. All of these anecdotes are really interesting, but there is actually real data that shows the disposable spend.
Could you have afforded your house sooner if you hadn't been on so many holidays? Yes, obviously.
It's such a different quantity of money.
Not really. Not really. If you add them up.
Here's the thing. People of millennial generation or Generation Z
just love complaining.
Spend less on leisure than any other generation. As a percentage term of their income, they spend less than the previous generations at their age. This is disposable spend. The reason these people are going on holidays is holidays are cheaper today than they were 30 years ago.
Tom, how do you bat away the actual statistics, the facts that there are now more first-time buyers buying properties in this country than ever before?
Control for population.
And in real terms.
They're probably older as well, to be fair.
Percentage-wise, as a percentage of all buyers, it's never been higher.
And yet the average age at which someone buys a home has never been older.
Buy anything. It's simply not true. The facts speak for themselves. Some first-time buyers are finding a way. And don't forget, first-time buyers get off the hook in terms of stamp duty holidays, not paying stamp duty until the price of the property reaches a certain level, much more than regular buyers. They've had help to build, the bank of mum and dad, all of the things that I certainly didn't have 40 or 50 years ago when I was thinking about
and things that might have pushed up prices yet further and been damaging programmes in the process.
Tom and Emily, I would argue first-time buyers have rarely had it so good.
Well, I think we can all agree we probably need a few more houses built, and that doesn't seem to be happening. So we can agree on that, probably. Russell Quirk, thank you very much indeed, as ever. Property expert there, Russell Quirk. There you go.
No, fantastic.
I like winding you up on this one.
I think there'll be a lot of people who are scrimped and saved who think, have we never had it so good? And it's...
I just think, if I look back to my parents when they were in their 20s, they weren't going on holidays. They weren't going out for dinner. They weren't going, spending money on festivals.
Statistically, they're going out for more dinners than young people today are.
No, they weren't.
You know, one of the really interesting things, there is data on this, one of the really interesting things,
shush about your data. We could swap data.
Can I get this fact out? It's really fun.
It's a fact,
there are lots of headlines about how young people don't drink, right? You know, it's supposed to be the sober generation.
Yes.
It turns out that the reason behind that isn't that they don't want to drink, it's they can't afford to go out and drink.
Apparently they're drinking again. There's actually been new data.
Exactly.
There's been new data. Smirnoff Ice is back.
The problem was,
baby.
The problem was the amount of money they had to spend. They couldn't afford to go out and drink.
Yeah, but Tom, it's invariably middle-class people like you who are complaining about this, meanwhile going on millions of holidays.
I haven't even been on one holiday this year.
Well, you've got a house now, so it's all right, so you don't need to worry. Anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. I am winding you up a bit, but lots more coming up on today's show. Bill and Hillary Clinton, well, they've been dragged into the Epstein investigation. Why? What is going on? The Clintons must testify. That's after your headlines.
Thank you. The headlines at 12:30. Illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use the human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition's suggestions that that's the case. The Charity Commission has found no evidence of bullying or harassment at a charity set up by Prince Harry, but it has found that an internal dispute at Centre Barley severely impacted the charity's reputation. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. Artificial intelligence tools will be rolled out to all police forces to tackle grooming gangs. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 35 minutes past midday.
Now, Chat GPT.
What's that?
If you don't know what it is, it's artificial intelligence, and it helps you write things and research things, and you can even talk to them like they're your friend, can't you, Tom?
Shall we
you
do
know
some
about
of that
this,
now?
don't you?
I mean, we could talk to Chat now.
Go on, then. You love talking to Chat.
I was actually
Careful, though.
I was actually talking to Chat last night about Texas redistricting. It was very good fun. Wait, hang on, here we go.
Beats railway lines.
Hi, Chat. You're live on GB News. How are you feeling?
Oh, wow. Live TV. That's exciting. I'm feeling great. Thanks for having me on. How's everything going on your end?
It's going great. We're just doing a segment about artificial intelligence. Do you have anything to say about that?
Absolutely. AI is such a fascinating topic, and it's amazing to see how it's evolving and becoming part of our everyday lives. There's so much potential for it to help us in all kinds of fields, including journalism.
Great. Thanks so much for your help. Been great to chat.
That was freaky. Why was it a woman?
You can choose what voice it is.
Did you choose that voice?
I chose that voice, yeah.
She sounded very casual. Did you choose that kind of...
You can choose sort of what sort of conversation, but it is incredible. I mean, I'm utterly convinced call centres will not exist in the next 12 months.
Yeah, well, I feel bad for the millions of people who were employed by them.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, ChatGPT, to which we were just talking, is undergoing a major change after concerns it was giving overly direct advice on sensitive personal matters, including whether users should break up with their partners. So you could write in there, oh, my partner never takes the rubbish out, he sometimes is a bit rude to me, blah, 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 and then they say, break up with him.
Well, this is the thing. It's not even writing to it. People do, on an evening, sit there and just talk to their ChatGPT app on their phones, and you can have a conversation for hours.
Tom, go on. You do this,
People
don't
do
you?
relationship advice. I generally talk about sort of weird, specific history things.
Regulations.
Because obviously it has just incredible knowledge of everything that has ever been written in the world. But it's absolutely fascinating. But here's the interesting thing. For people that have been taking relationship advice from this robot, well, OpenAI, the company behind it, says the chatbot will stop giving such clear-cut answers to questions about personal relationships. So that's a new change from OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT.
Yeah. I've just asked, does Emily Carver like Tom Harwood?
And
I've asked the chatbot
what does
this.
Chat say?
There's no evidence Emily Carver likes Tom Harwood. In a romantic or personal way.
Oh, in a romantic way.
They seem to be colleagues who spar on air with professional interactions that do not hint at romantic affection.
Oh. Well, I suppose that's true. I think Patrick will be glad to read that from ChatGPT.
Emily's own feature around her maternity leave noted that Tom appeared at her house with a cake. Well, that's not correct. It was
I appeared here at this desk with a cake.
Which seems supportive, but nothing more than a colleague's friendly gesture. So there's nothing untoward going on here, Tom.
No, nothing untoward at all. Well, do get in touch. gbnews.com/you'll say, or does the lady protest too much? I mean, who knows?
I don't know.
But do get in touch if you've ever had a conversation with artificial intelligence, if it's ever given you slightly curious advice.
It can help with the breakup texts, that's for sure. Anyway, former US President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed as part of a Republican-led investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network.
Yes, a House Oversight Committee is now demanding their testimony and access to Justice Department files, citing Bill Clinton's past ties to Epstein and his long-standing association with Ghislaine Maxwell.
OK, well, we're joined by US opinion editor for The Telegraph newspaper, Poppy Coburn. Poppy, what's the latest on this, then?
Well, it's good news for the Trump administration, for once, on the Epstein story, because the heat is no longer on him, and it's gone back to former President Bill Clinton. So just to give a little bit of background for why the subpoena has happened, this was ordered by James Comer. He ordered the subpoenas, and it's not just Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton that was involved. It was former heads of the FBI, it was former attorney generals, Bill Barr, who prosecuted Epstein and gave him a sweetheart deal all those years ago, Jeff Sessions, who was also arranged in that original deal. So this has been a very broad investigation into all of the people who had dealings with Jeffrey Epstein, who were involved legally with Jeffrey Epstein, and then we come back here to the Clintons. So why are the Clintons involved in this? You know, it surely would seem quite strange that a former president was involved with this disgraced financier. But actually, the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton was once a very, very close one. He actually rode on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane that was called the Lolita Express by journalists 26 times. And not just that, he brought him to the White House 17 times. Now, to be clear, this is before there was any prosecution. There was no actual news at the time that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender. But it does imply that the relationship between the two was very close, which is precisely why this subpoena may be quite interesting for the administration.
But also political, no doubt political. This subpoena has been ordered by Republican congressmen controlling a Republican-dominated committee requesting that Democrats go before it. Is this playing politics with something incredibly serious?
I think it's difficult to dispute it's playing politics. I mean, this was ordered by James Comer. He is a Republican himself. There is no doubt that Trump wants people to stop talking about his connection with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, there was an embarrassing story yesterday in the New York Times, which had more photos released of lots of people, including Trump, seeming to be very pally-pally with the man, photos in Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion. But that said, some of the names that I mentioned earlier about the people who were involved in the subpoena, they are Republicans too. This is not a pure partisan attack on Democrats. The reason why we're focusing on Clinton is because it's so shocking, I think, that another president, former president, was involved so closely with Jeffrey Epstein, which is precisely why people are interested in this story, I think, in the first place.
And will they legally have to testify now?
Yes, I mean, that is precisely what a subpoena means. I think there's no way that Bill and Hillary can actually deny the summons. They will have to go and speak. Now, what they actually are going to reveal in this is going to be limited. They're going to have some of the best legal representation you can get in the world. And again, I think they can say legitimately, we were with Jeffrey Epstein before it was publicly known that he was a man who had been convicted of sex offences. Now, of course, there are so many reports about Jeffrey Epstein having very young women around him all the time. I mean, Clinton himself, and I'm not implying at all any impropriety on his part, but I'm just explaining why people are worried. He wrote a birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein, as did Trump, and he actually spoke about his childlike curiosity. It's very close, it's quite strange and pally. And so he's going to have to talk about why he was so close to this man, and he's going to have to make it very, very clear that he did not know about these sex trafficking offences, and it's going to be pretty embarrassing.
And yet, of course, in the early 2000s, you had Trump, Epstein and Bill Clinton, all powerful and rich people living only a few miles from one another, moving in the same circles, going to the same parties, in the sort of billionaire New York boys club. Perhaps it's inevitable that they ran into one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, of course, I mean, everyone brings up that little black book, right? That little black book of names of people who visited Jeffrey Epstein at that New York mansion that he had. And really what people say is because Jeffrey Epstein was a collector of famous people, he liked to associate with the rich, with the famous, with the powerful. Being mentioned in that black book once perhaps is no mark against your name. But there is obviously a very close relationship here. I mean, again, 27 times riding on his private plane. He has visited his private island. He invited him into the White House. This is a relationship that you cannot just say, we met once at a party, we got an awkward photo together. That's it. That's the end of the story.
Fascinating. Poppy Coburn, thank you very much indeed. US opinion editor for the Telegraph newspaper there. Let us know your thoughts.
Absolutely. It's always fascinating how much more power US committees have than British parliamentary
27 times on the plane. 17 times in the White House.
Well, I think it's going to be blockbuster television.
Absolutely.
When that does happen.
You get to see it all, don't you?
How much pleading of the fifth will be taken? I think probably a lot. But we'll certainly be all eyes peeled on that testimony when it does occur.
Absolutely. But if you want to travel away on holiday, here's the forecast.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
There's some hot air across parts of northern Africa at the moment, and as that's feeding its way northwards, it's going to push into Spain and Portugal. And here we're going to see temperatures rising through the next few days, could get into the low 40s at times. Otherwise, there will be a spell of showery rain affecting Gibraltar perhaps on Thursday, and a few showers across Italy and also into Greece and Turkey, but slightly fewer than I'm expecting through today. And the outlook for many is looking sunny and fairly hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more to come on today's programme.
Yes, we're calling all beer lovers today. The Great British Beer Festival is back. Our reporter Jack Carson is there. We'll see what he's up to next.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many, as we go through the rest of today, it's looking largely fine. There'll be some decent, warm, sunny breaks around, but there is some wet weather that's going to push in later on. That's because there's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic, but that's going to make its way gradually southeastwards as we go through the next 24 hours. For the time being, though, like I said, it's a fine picture for the majority of us. Some decent sunshine on offer, perhaps the cloud bubbling up a little bit as we go into the afternoon, and there may be some high-level cloud around, so the sunshine may turn a little milky, but it's going to stay dry for the vast majority of us. And with the sunshine, temperatures a little bit higher than yesterday, and feeling it with the lighter winds, temperatures peaking around 25 Celsius towards the south. As we go towards the evening, we are going to see the winds starting to pick up a little bit, and a little bit more cloud pushing across western parts of Scotland and across parts of Northern Ireland. Perhaps a few outbreaks of rain by around 5 or 6 o'clock. Further east and south, though, clinging on to that fine weather well into the evening. So some glimmers of sunshine to look forward to as we go through the end of the day. Yes, the cloud may be a bit thicker in some places, but on the whole, it's staying fine for a little while yet. Overnight, however, that weather system does make its way in, so wet weather pushing across parts of Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, and some of that rain feeding into parts of northern and western Wales and western and northern England as well as we go through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Towards the southeast, staying dry with some clear skies, a bit of a fresh night for some, but still temperatures generally holding up in the mid-teens Celsius. Then through tomorrow, that front continues its way southeastwards. It will bring some heavy bursts of rain across some high ground towards the west, but it breaks up and fizzles out as it moves through. So towards the southeast, not really seeing any of the rain associated with that. And behind the front, we are going to see a scattering of showers pushing their way in. Temperatures may be down a degree or so compared to today, but feeling warm in any sunny breaks.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M8 westbound at junction 13 is restricted due to a road traffic incident. Drivers should approach cautiously. Meanwhile, on the M4 eastbound at junction 48 in Hendy, resurfacing work has closed the exit slip road, with diversions in place. In Cumbria, congestion affects the A590 westbound between the A591 and junction A6. And on the trains, ScotRail services are suspended between Inverness and Kyle of Lochalsh, Wick and Aberdeen, with disruption in Inverkeithing. Avanti West Coast faces disruptions between Carlisle and Lockerbie and Wilmslow and Crewe. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 to 1. And beer lovers, get ready. Yes, the Great British Beer Festival is now in full swing in Birmingham.
Hosted by Camera, the campaign for real ale. It features over 900 real ales, craft beers, ciders and perries from all over the United Kingdom, plus some international treats.
Well, it's the ultimate celebration of Britain's good love for a good pint.
Well, let's cross over to Birmingham, where our reporter Jack Carson is soaking up the atmosphere. Jack, is this a bad time to tell you I can't stand beer? If he's there.
You're understandable, though, for you, Emily, being that you are pregnant. But here, there are thousands of people gathering for beer, and there are more than 600 types available. I'm already sampling the goods. You saw me running to the bar earlier, and let's just introduce you to just how many people are coming here. All the different kinds of beers on offer. You'll notice as well, this one bar, appropriately named the Carlton Tavern. There's a bit of a theme at the beer festival this year that some of the bars are named after those iconic pubs that the community helped save, and it's of course a big part of what CAMRA, the Campaign for Real Ales, do, who run this event. Tom Stainer, Chief Executive, joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us. What is it about British beer that makes it so great?
Well, it just tastes great, doesn't it? You have all these brewers across the country that take incredibly simple ingredients, you know, malted barley, hops, water, and they turn it into this wide variety of fascinating styles, from dark beers to milds to IPAs. So there's always something you can discover. And coming something like the NEC this week to the Great British Beer Festival, there's almost 700 beers. You can try lots of different ones. You can try beers from your locality. You can try beers from areas of the country you've never been to before. So it's just a great opportunity to take yourself on that journey of discovery for beer and also ciders and perries.
And you've essentially turned this place into one big, massive pub. But there is a concerning polling out that almost half of Brits are actually considering cutting back on their pub visits because of financial pressures. How worrying is that to you, and for the industry?
And it's got to be hugely worrying for us, for anyone who likes their local pub. They're hearts of communities. It's where people come together. And at the moment, pubs are being taxed into oblivion. You know, they've got national insurance. They've got one of the highest beer duty rates in Europe. They've got high VAT. And there's lots of things the government could do to help support these vital community businesses which can drive local economies. They employ local people, they use local suppliers, and all they need is a fair crack at the whip to be really good, viable businesses.
So thinking ahead to the likes of the autumn budget, as a campaign for Real Ales, what do you want to see the government change? What changes would you like to see which for you would actually help pubs, help the industry?
Yeah, and we've got to see a reform of business rates. Pubs are paying a disproportionate amount in terms of turnover compared to other very profitable businesses. We've got to see VAT forgiven for hospitality. At the moment, hospitality businesses have to pay VAT on food and drink. There could be a way of making that less for hospitality businesses. National insurance hike has meant that pubs are closing early, they're not open certain days, they just can't employ staff. So we've got to see something done, national insurance for hospitality as well. And then to increase what's called the differential draft rate, which is making beer served on draft in pubs cheaper to encourage more people to leave their sofas, to stop watching streaming TV, go down to their pub and find out again just how wonderful they are.
And talking about going down to the pub, finding some of the beautiful beer, let's just finish. What is your favourite beer? What's some of the things that you've been sampling, liking here at the festival today?
And I've got to say, our champion beer brand, which was announced yesterday, it's Penzance Mild. It's a low ABV beer. Milds are great because they show just what brewers can do with malt flavours, not heavily hopped. Really nice, drinkable, sessional beer. I'd recommend it to anyone.
All right, Tom Stainer, thank you so much. Chief Executive of CAMRA there, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, telling us just how brilliant this festival is for celebrating great British beer, but also those concerns that they have and the industry have around, business rates, a national insurance hike, as you heard there. Lots of important things being discussed, as well as, of course, the beer being celebrated.
Oh, yes, he's going to finish it. Is he going to finish it in one? Yes, he is. Classic. Oh, no, not quite. There we go. Jack Carson, thanks so much for joining us and for finishing off your pint there in front of us on live television. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, remember to have a glass of water as well in between your pints.
Oh, you really are becoming a mother.
I am, yes, I'm practising. Anyway, we've got lots more coming up on today's show.
Just telling your 1-month-old, a glass of water between your pints.
I will not be feeding my baby alcohol.
You may speak French. You are not French.
Right, well, we're going to be live close to France, but not quite in France, in Dover, with Mark White in just a tick. So do stick with us. He's got some news from the English Channel.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours or so, we're going to say goodbye to the largely fine picture that we've had across much of the country through today, and instead we're going to have some wet weather arriving from the northwest. It's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic that's going to make its way southeastwards, but like I said, we do still have plenty of fine weather around at the moment, and so it's a fine evening for most of us. Some late glimmers of sunshine across the bulk of the country, but then overnight rain pushes its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, and some rain feeding into parts of northern and western England and Wales. Ahead of the rain towards the southeast, it's staying dry with some clear skies. Could turn a little fresh here, but for most, nowhere near as fresh or as cool as it was last night. A relatively mild start to the day. Then as we go through the day, we are going to see that cloud and rain gradually making its way southeastwards. It'll have already started to clear away from parts of Scotland by the time that we get to around 7 or 8. And so there'll be a bit more of a showery theme here, even some bright or sunny spells developing once that front has pushed through. A similar story across Northern Ireland, scattered showers, some sunny breaks, but across northern England, Wales, parts of the West Midlands and down towards the southwest of England, here the front will be lingering, and so it's looking quite cloudy and quite damp. Ahead of the front in the southeast, clinging onto the fine weather for a little while yet. It is going to turn cloudier here as we go into the afternoon, but the front breaks up as it makes its way across the country, so barely any rain arriving here. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers, some bright sunny spells, a bit less sunshine on offer than today, and slightly stronger winds, so not feeling quite as warm. As we go later on, we are going to continue with some showery bursts across a few places, a little bit more showery rain perhaps reaching the far southeast, but not a huge amount, and then there will be some clear skies as we go overnight into Friday. Into the weekend, and there will be some wet, blustery weather towards the far north of the UK. Elsewhere, many places looking fine and temperatures rising.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Are the Prince and Princess of Wales animal abusers? It's time now for the head-to-head. Well, Peter's at it again, this time aiming at the Prince and Princess of Wales for daring to breed their Cocker Spaniels. The animal rights activists say that the royal couple are, quote, out of touch, and slam them for churning out a litter while rescue centres are overflowing. It comes after Kensington Palace released a photo of Prince William and dog Orla and her 3 puppies, snapped by Kate for his 43rd birthday. So, is it really cruel? Are the royals cruel for breeding their dogs? Well, going head-to-head on this now, I'm pleased to be joined by Senior Corporate Projects Manager at Peter, Dr Caris Bennett, and dog trainer John Allison.
There's all these dogs that are desperately needing a home. Why breed more dogs into the world? It sends the wrong message. And in fact, you don't have to look far to see the right message. King Charles and Camilla adopted Molly, a lovely dog from an animal rescue. And we encourage everyone to do the same. If you're looking to have a companion animal at home, please go to an animal rescue, never breed dogs.
It's very important to note that it's natural for dogs to breed and create their puppies. I think it's absolutely ludicrous to label the royal family irresponsible. We just have to look at their incredible record of animal welfare and how much they have done for animal welfare throughout the country. Unlike an organisation like PETA, who only recently contributed to dogs being put in rescue centres when they supported the banning of the XL bully.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Wednesday, the 6th of August. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Well, Labour's one in, one out deal appears to be unravelling. Yes, it turns out migrants could dodge deportation by claiming to be underage or that their human rights are under attack.
Well, the people smugglers have given their verdict to this deal, pushing more migrants into the English Channel today, with the first boatload expected here in the coming minutes.
Now, remember that £22 billion black hole that Rachel Reeves blamed on the previous government? Well, there may be a new black hole, expanding to a whopping £50 billion. That after taxes rose by £40 billion. Now, a further record tax hikes really on the cards.
At the same time, it's more bad news as it's revealed thousands of company bosses have fled the United Kingdom since the budget.
In royal news, Prince Harry hits back as he faces criticism after a bitter dispute with the charity he co-founded. And that dispute went public. A source tells GB News he's devastated.
And could Camden Council, within Keir Starmer's constituency, soon go fully vegan, with plans to serve only plant-based food at official events? Critics are warning of a draconian ban on meat and dairy, all in Starmer's backyard. Oh dear, it's not going to look like Keir Starmer's in touch with the great British public if a council in his constituency goes fully vegan.
Maybe not, although of course he doesn't control his council. I mean, I do sometimes think that politicians are too bogged down in sort of council matters that should be reserved to the council and don't think enough about national matters. So I think it might be a bit unfair to blame Keir Starmer on what Camden Council happens to do.
Oh, really? I think that MPs should be involved in local disputes, sort them out quicker, get them resolved. For example, when the Home Office comes over to the council and says, you've got to have a migrant hotel in your patch, you want the MP to stand up to the Home Office, don't you?
Yeah, you do want them to stand up to certain local issues.
Because the councillors don't really get very far. I mean, look at Epping.
But I do think that there sometimes is a problem when politicians see it as their job to just be glorified councillors.
Yeah, fair enough.
And to focus on the minutiae rather than the grand political challenges that this country faces.
Yeah, but then you also have MPs who spend all of their time researching things that they're never going to ever be in charge of. So, you know, it's not much use having, you know, the MP for Dorset East or whatever, reading up endlessly about, I don't know, the future of carbon technology in Switzerland when he's never going to be in a position to enact any of it.
There's a good joke that Lord Hannon used to tell back when he was a member of the European Parliament. He got in 1999. I might well butcher his anecdote. It is his anecdote.
He's going to try anyway.
But in his first week as a member of the European Parliament, he got a phone call from a constituent in the southeast of England who phoned up and started talking about a drain pipe, and it was clogged, and so what can he do about this? And Hannon, newly elected MEP, goes, don't you think this is more of a question for your local council? To which the constituent goes, not sure I want to take it that high.
I once invited Lord Daniel Hannan, when he wasn't a lord, I don't think, to speak at my school because I was head of the Politics Society.
Oh, yeah.
And he said he couldn't because it wasn't his patch. I assumed the South East included London. It did not.
I thought you might laugh at the punchline, but clearly not.
Oh, sorry, you lost me. We'll run it again. We'll run it again.
I don't think the world needs to hear it again. It's OK. But you know what? We'll get to live in the channel.
I laugh at your jokes a lot, Tom.
Yes, that is true. We are expecting to see a migrant boat arrive in the channel. We'll get to those live pictures after your latest news headlines with Tatiana.
Tom, thank you very much. The top story, some breaking news. A 56-year-old man who'd been on the run for 2 years to avoid being recalled to prison for a separate offence has been sentenced today to life in prison for the murder of an elderly dog walker. Roy Barkley has been sentenced at Ipswich Crown Court to life with a minimum term of 25 years for murdering a 57-year-old grandmother, Anita Rose, who'd been out walking her dog in Brantham in Suffolk in July last year. Judge Martin Levitt described Barkley as someone prone to dangerous outbursts at the slightest confrontation. A day after the government announced the signing of its migrant returns deal with France, people smugglers have launched hundreds more migrants into the Channel. The Border Force vessel Typhoon picked up the first group of at least 60 migrants just after 11:30 a.m. The vessel's now en route to Dover Harbour. A second Border Force vessel, Ranger, is picking up another group of migrants. More migrant boat launches expected this afternoon. It says illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition's suggestions that that's the case. Under the terms of the agreements with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say that they're under the age of 18. This is just one of the potential loopholes which could be exploited and threatens to undermine the government's attempt to smash the gangs. Shadow Culture Minister Joe Robertson spoke to GB News Breakfast.
I think people have become very, very wary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people. One in, one out. I mean, it said if it does what it says on the tin, one in, one out isn't going to reduce the number of migrants in this country, because one in means there'll be one out the other side. So I don't think it's going to work. We don't even have numbers. The government aren't even telling us how many people will be deported under this scheme. So if they can't even give us the numbers, how do we know whether it's successful or not?
Prince Harry's facing criticism from the charity watchdog after a dispute at a charity he co-founded was allowed to spill into the public eye. The Charity Commission has issued a formal action plan for Sentebale, the Duke's charity supporting children and young people in southern Africa. It flagged leadership confusion and poor governance, but found no evidence of bullying or misconduct by Prince Harry, despite claims from the charity's current chair. A spokesperson for Harry says the findings clear him, but claims the real damage will be felt by the children that the charity supports. The Prime Minister says he does not recognise figures that suggest the government will need to raise taxes in the autumn budget. It's after Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. In a warning, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research said the Chancellor is now on course to miss targets and spending promises as finances plunge deeper into the red. The report has fuelled speculation over how the government may look to boost tax revenues in the autumn, including mounting rumours of a possible wealth tax.
Some of the figures that have been put out are not figures that I recognise, but the budget won't be until later in the year, and that's why we'll have the forecast then, and we'll set out our plans. What's really important is that I'm very clear about our focus, which will be on living standards and making sure that people feel better off, partly because more money is coming into their pocket in the first place through better wages, and partly because we're bearing down on costs like mortgages and other costs to everyday families.
Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. The committee is seeking information about the deceased financier's history after President Trump decided against releasing more federal files despite widespread backlash and pressure from within his own party. Donald Trump has denied prior knowledge of Epstein's crimes, claiming he'd ended their relationship a long time ago. Epstein died in a New York jail cell in 2019 awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. US political analyst Eric Ham spoke to GB News.
Well, when we see these House committees, and of course we know how partisan and of course political they have become recently, it's unclear if in fact this is an effort to try to get more information about Epstein. Of course, we know both he was in jail and of course his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has already been convicted. So in terms of actually trying to determine or find more information, not just about victims, but of course perpetrators, perhaps that's what we're seeing. But again, this is a case where you would expect those prosecutors who have worked the Epstein case would have far more information about the breadth and depth of Epstein's antics, more so than perhaps some of the people that we're seeing being called, which suggests that this is purely political and more political theater on top of that.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin's meeting with US President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow. It comes as US President Donald Trump has set a deadline of Friday for Russia to agree to end the Ukraine war or face new sanctions. After arriving in Moscow today, Mr. Witkoff was met by Presidential Special Representative Kirill Dmitriev. Donald Trump has described the meet as pivotal in determining whether the United States goes ahead with new sanctions against Russia. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound will buy you $1.3286 and €1.1476. The price of gold, £2,530.25 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,156 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 10 minutes past 1, and the Chancellor has been warned she will have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn budget to plug a £50 billion black hole.
Well, this comes as new figures reveal around 300,000 more savers than last year will have to pay tax on their savings interest.
Well, we're joined now by the Deputy Director at the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, Stephen Millard. Stephen, this is a big piece of news. It's hit all the papers this morning. Everyone's talking about it. How is this 40 or, by some reports, £50 billion figure reached?
Well, the 41.2 billion, that's the deficit in current spending that we expect the government to have in 28-29. That's their fiscal rule, that should be zero. And so the deficit, the gap, is 41.2 billion. The extra 9 billion or so comes from our suggestion that the Chancellor will want to allow herself a buffer against further negative news, if you like. If she has a buffer of 9.9 billion, the same one she had in October of last year, then that takes you above the 50 billion mark.
And your organisation, Stephen, is warning that this means tax rises coming down the line very quickly in that autumn budget, or public spending cuts.
Yeah, so the Chancellor is facing what we've called an impossible trilemma. So she can either cut spending, but that's unlikely given that we've just had the comprehensive spending review. She could try and increase borrowing, but that would likely result in a financial markets reaction, which would not be good in the long run anyway. And she has said that her fiscal rules are ironclad. And that leaves the third option, which is to raise taxes. But then again, the Chancellor has stressed time and again that she will not raise taxes on working people. So it's not clear it is very clear to us that one of these three things will have to give.
I suppose the very obvious thing that we'll have to give is not the financial markets, because obviously we've seen what that happened in 2022 and the country went into turmoil. Very clearly, working people are going to pay the brunt of this in one form or another. It might be more direct, with direct taxes on them, or it might be more sneaky, with stealth taxes. This is what, of course, the Blair government did a lot. It's what actually the last Conservative government did too, freezing those thresholds as inflation pushed people into higher income brackets. What is the most likely course of action? Where are people going to get whacked?
Well, I'm not the Chancellor, so I can't possibly predict what she's going to do. What I will say, though, is £50 billion is a large figure. You're not going to get to that number by tinkering. You're not going to get to that number by stealth taxes. If you're going to do it by raising taxes, you are going to have to raise one or other of the major ones, VAT and or income tax. Now, what we suggest is maybe the Chancellor thinks about raising the higher rate of income tax and then the basic rate as well. And but she will have to, I think, raise income tax.
But right.
Income tax is already at 45%. By some estimates, I mean, cutting it down to 40% would be revenue neutral because we sort of hit that very high point. I mean, the top rate of tax in the United States is 10 points lower than that.
Yeah, can we squeeze the rich any more than we are already, Stephen, really? Realistically, we're hearing that business people are moving abroad. We're hearing that the rich are moving. Non-doms, God knows what's happening there. The private school fees tax hike seems to be not working out as hoped. I mean, is there really much to squeeze, Stephen?
Well, I think there is. I mean, you know, what is high is all relative, really. I mean, I grew up at a time when the highest rate of income tax was 98%.
We weren't in a great place then, were we, though, Stephen?
Indeed, 45% is positively very low by comparison.
Yeah. although, ironically, you get more out of the rich with a 45% top rate of tax than you did with 92.
Well, exactly, but it's not clear to me that that would apply at 50. So if you raise from 45 to 50, I think that would get an extra amount out of the rich, but it wouldn't be so bad, I think, that you would see a massissive exodus or anything like that.
I don't know, but with everything added up, though, Stephen,
again,
with everything added up.
Suggesting that is the sort of fairness thing, because they are, I'm afraid, going to have to raise the basic rate as well.
Yeah, and that's going to be really politically difficult because this would be a very clear manifesto breach. People on modest incomes paying more tax. Although I suppose the truth of it that isn't often spoken about is that actually people on very low incomes do pay less tax today than they did 15 years ago.
Yeah, that is actually true. The other point to make, though, which is worth it, is that you mentioned the freezing of tax thresholds. That has brought a number of sort of low-paid workers into paying tax in the first place. So their taxes have risen. So in a sense, freezing the tax thresholds already breaches that manifesto promise about higher taxes for working people.
Okay,
but I think what the Chancellor has got to do is emphasise why she needs the extra money and what the benefits are of the spending that these tax increases will be financing effectively.
Yeah, so I worry that all of the benefits are it's going to pay for the higher interest rates that the government has to pay for its borrowing, which does seem to be a huge part of this black hole. So no one's going to see any of the benefits of that at all, or at least for tens of billions of it. Stephen, we're going to have to leave it there, but thanks so much for joining us. Really, really interesting stuff there. And gosh, who would want to be the Chancellor at this point in time?
I mean, it's just absolutely infuriating. We were told by the Prime Minister when he came in, yes, things are going to get worse before they get better. OK, Rachel Reeves tells us that she's got this budget. Don't worry, though, it's absolutely a one-off. It's never going to happen again. We're never going to have to raise these taxes again. It's a one-off, 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 one-off. Oh, wait, it's not a one-off, is it? It's just so duplicitous. And I'm sorry, not enough has changed to warrant it.
Well, I believe...
Apart from mismanagement, in my opinion.
I fundamentally believe the Chancellor wanted it to be a one-off. I think she really thought her policies would work.
Well, then she's not bright enough to have thought through some of the implications of what she put in place.
If you're worrying about the financial situation in this country, if you're worrying about the higher taxes that we're all likely going to face come October, maybe it's your chance to get some more money into the kitty. Live mortgage or rent-free for a year, because that's what we're offering anyone who enters the Great British Giveaway. One of you will be able to win a year's free mortgage payments or indeed rent payments with an extra £5,000 tax-free on top. And if you've already paid off your mortgage or you've got no rent to pay, you can still enter and win 15 grand. Here's how you do it.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's right, we'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. cost. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, this is an interesting one. Is the public missing out on true crime horrors all across the country? Well, we're asking because court reporting, i.e. when newspapers and broadcasters send reporters to the courts, is massively in decline. And the fewer journalists that attend, the less of these crimes we hear.
Yeah, so what's the reason for this decline and what are we missing out on? Well, delighted to be joined now by the media law commentator Charlie Maloney. Charlie, thanks so much for being with us today. It does seem like there is a lot going out there, out in the country, that perhaps 2 decades ago people would be reading in local papers or indeed national papers, that just isn't getting the attention it deserves.
I would say there are countless cases which would absolutely shock and appall people that are being missed every single day. And I speak to many court reporters up and down the country. I'm based in Berkshire, but I also cover other areas in the southeast. And every court reporter I speak to agrees with that statement. It is just that there are news deserts where essentially nobody goes. But as we can imagine, crime hasn't stopped happening in those areas. We've just stopped hearing about it, unless something really high profile happens, perhaps there's a celebrity involved, perhaps there's something extremely unusually tragic. But the day-to-day things, even murder trials, are not being covered at all.
What can we do about this? Because we know that local reporting, unfortunately, the money just isn't there, Charlie.
I think that's really the big question that we're all trying to figure out the answer to. And I mean, without running a media company myself and perhaps not being the best person to sort of teach them how to run their businesses, I think it's quite well known that the hope was that people would put all their content for free online and perhaps pay through it through advertising. But that dream just hasn't turned into a reality. And now we're trying to experiment with things like paywalls and all of that. But essentially, we are struggling to get people to pay for content when there's so much available online for free. And I think all your viewers will know, people don't buy newspapers anymore, particularly young people.
Yeah, and good journalism costs money. I mean, you can't just have a sort of AI scrape the news from what other people... You have to have someone go to that courtroom to hear what's going on. And in some cases, to put forward representations in order to be able to report on things. There have been cases where names have been obscured of people who have been killed. And frankly, had there been journalists in the room, different choices may have been made.
Absolutely, Tom. I mean, I teach journalism students, and I'm always quite surprised by the extent to which people come up to me and say, but surely all this stuff is just freely available online anyway. Surely I could just Google it and find out. You try and find out what's happening in a local magistrate's court and see how you get on. It is just the amount of information about what happens in our court system is just not put into the public domain voluntarily by the court system. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. You know, we've got the names of children, we've got the names of victims of really sensitive and serious offences, but the people who go to court and extract that information and do all of the work about checking whether it's legally safe to publish and verifying, you know, that all the facts are accurate, those people have traditionally always been journalists. And of course, they have been paid for in one way or another. And yes, journalists will be the ones in the room challenging reporting restrictions. But what I'm increasingly seeing, and again, people I speak to are seeing this as well, is reporting restrictions that any competent court reporter should be able to challenge very easily are being made because there are no journalists there to challenge them. And it's understandable because, you know, courts have a lot of things going on. They're very focused on getting through their trials. If a reporting restriction is suggested, they might just wave it through and say, that's fine. Yeah. But the reality is we need journalists. They're pushing back on this because it's gaining momentum.
That is such an interesting point. Do you think it's the case then, over the last 10 or so years, that actually there has been more gagging of the press simply because the press isn't in the room. It's become harder to talk about various cases, some of them completely horrific. It's become, for want of a better word, more illegal to talk about this stuff because you don't have the journalists in the room challenging the court orders in the first place.
Absolutely. Most times when you walk into court as a journalist, particularly these regional courts, people look at you like you're, you know, a dodo or something like that. They just cannot believe you've turned up, and everybody's extremely suspicious of you. And the attitude, through lack of exposure, is surely this journalist isn't allowed to report this. Now, of course, when the journalists aren't there, you know, the people in court will all be very much in agreement that there should be a ban on this and a ban on that. And as that continues to go, it just gains momentum with each new reporting restriction that's made.
And this is so important with recent conversation and debate over how much transparency there should be over potential suspects and things. Charlie Maloney, thank you very much indeed, media law commentator. It's a big issue. It's a big issue. We need local reporters down at the courts finding out what's happening. Yeah. Otherwise it gets lost.
And the longer time there's been a gap of being a reporter there in the room, the more and more restrictive it becomes. Yeah. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Coming up, we're going to be live in the Channel with Mark White. Some activity down there in Dover. That coming up next.
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 28 minutes past 1, and we're going to go straight to the Channel now. Illegal migrants crossing may be able to use human rights as a loophole to avoid deportation.
Yes, this is all under the terms of this new agreement with France, and asylum seekers apparently will not qualify for deportation if they happen to lodge a human rights claim or say they're under 18.
Well, it's just one of the potential loopholes that could be exploited and undermine the government's attempt to stop those boats. But, of course, this is all about the one-in, one-out deal. It came into effect yesterday. Has it been stopping those boats? The man to ask is, of course, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, live there down in Dover for us. Mark, I'm assuming, given the government signed this deal, it's now in effect, there are no boats today, none at all.
Well, you would, of course, be wrong, but then you knew that anyway. You're just setting me up for the perfect introduction. Your timing is impeccable, as always, Tom and Emily. I'm going to step out of the way, and we can show you the Border Force vessel Typhoon just entering the harbour here at Dover, having picked up the first load of migrants of the day mid-channel. This was a boat that set off from Gravelines Beach near Dunkirk this morning, made it by about 11 o'clock or so to the middle of the English Channel, where it was then picked up by this Border Force vessel. There is another Border Force vessel, Ranger, which is about 5 minutes behind this one, that will be coming into the harbour with a second load of migrants that also set off in a small boat from Gravelines Beach this morning. And it will be very interesting. It is perfectly possible, given that that deal has now been signed and we're told it is now in motion, that some or all of the migrants on board this first Border Force vessel coming across may actually be returned to France under this agreement. We don't know, because the government's being quite secretive about how it will operate, just how many will go, apart from saying that the numbers will be very modest to begin with, till they see whether this scheme works as intended, and then it can be rolled out. But you know, there's a nice little spat, quite unseemly political spat underway this morning that we all love to hear about, and it's between Dame Angela Eagle, the Home Office Minister, and the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp, who we featured on the channel a little earlier today. He's out in the middle of the English Channel because he wanted to see whether, after this agreement had been signed, any small boats would cross. And as we're finding, he found that small boats crossed and sent out messages and did live interviews with the likes of ourselves to that effect. Well, now Dame Angela Eagle has taken the bait and she has responded. She says, "Dear Chris, I know you're desperate for this pilot to fail, but setting the bar at whether it would rest to the instant cessation of all small boat crossings seems a bit low even for you." She goes on to say, "You may recall that on the 13th of April 2022, the day the UK-Rwanda treaty was signed, 651 people crossed the channel. In the 7 days up to the 19th of April, she says, 2,076 people came across the channel. Still the worst week ever for arrivals in the first 5 months of the year. I don't remember you saying then that proved the Rwanda scheme wouldn't work." So, of course, Chris Philp then decided that he would launch back at Angela Eagle and said, "You know that Rwanda never got off the ground because it was scrapped the first day that Labour got into office." And he says that in 2023, our last full year, we got crossings down by 30%. This year, he points out that crossings are up 50%, the worst year ever. So the politicians are going at each other, as you would imagine, because this is a flagship policy of this government. They believe that it will prove to be a deterrent, even though it is a tiny number who are ever going to be sent to France, at least in the early stages of this scheme. Clearly the opposition believe that it just is not going to work. And that's why Chris Philp is out in the channel today. And we're seeing, of course, the first migrant boat to arrive since that deal was signed just yesterday.
Watching that boat come closer and closer and closer to the coast, it looks like it's just about to drop off those people. Do we know how many may be on board? Do we have that type of information?
We believe at least 60 on board, but we'll have a firmer idea soon as you start seeing them come off. They come off. What's happening at the moment is that the typhoon is rounding the corner into an area of the harbour known as the Western Jet Foil. That's the area where Border Force has its migrant processing centre, an ad hoc collection of sort of portable cabin type buildings, a marquee, various buses waiting to take the migrants once they've been initially processed there to the Manston main processing centre just further up the coast. And at Manston, of course, they are kept in there for a couple of days while they are properly processed, and their next location where they are going to is sorted out. And now that may be the likes of the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf that we know the government has taken over now as a contingency for the potential of a summer surge and an overspill. And just at the weekend there, under the cover of darkness, the first group of migrants entered the Britannia Hotel. So it's very possible, as you hear the helicopter hovering overhead there, that this next group of migrants, once they're processed, could be heading off to the Britannia as well. Or, as I say, it's equally possible that they may be in short order heading across to the other side of the channel, providing, of course, they don't get a very able human rights lawyer and an activist group to advocate on their behalf. And then we're told they'll be able to mount a potential challenge which could scupper any chance to put them across back to France, in the same way that all of the other challenges during the previous government, the Conservative government's operations, did as well, with these activist groups and lawyers doing their level best to frustrate the government at every turn. I should say, just while we're talking, if Joe, our cameraman, can give you a shot. It's just coming into shot now, the Border Force vessel Ranger. It's going to be a bit of a slightly messy move as he has to come in and out of shot, but Ranger is the other Border Force vessel with another group of migrants on board that is making its way in. And we know on the busy days, we see them stacking up here at Dover Harbour as Border Force vessel after Border Force vessel and even lifeboats are called into action to pick up the migrants and take them here to the processing centre. So it's certainly possible as the day progresses, and our sources suggesting that the conditions are just ripe for more small boat crossings throughout today.
And Mark, the French can also just decide that they don't want to take back these migrants on various different grounds, can't they? They've got 28 days to give a response, and if they just ignore the request, the migrant stays in the United Kingdom, so they can say, oh, we don't actually fancy taking these ones back to France.
Heaven forfend we should ever imagine that the French would do anything to frustrate the smooth working of this Border Force operation, but you know, yes, that is absolutely a power open to them for whatever reason. If they decide that anyone being returned to them is someone whom perhaps they feel would not be conducive to the public good in France, then yes, they can intervene and stop that process. So you've got the French authorities on one side, you've got the lawyers and the activist groups on the other side, who all could coalesce around these migrants and ensure that efforts to get them returned in a timely manner to France are frustrated. And I guess that's what the government means as well about just this being a pilot and seeing how it will operate. If it does become unworkable, then it might have to change its mind and decide that this scheme has to be abandoned. We know that the previous government had to go through hoops and hoops over a good number of years from successive courts, right up from the High Court to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court and back again to finally get the definitive word on the Rwanda deal. It said it was in the final process of getting those flights off the ground and was planning to do it within 2 weeks of the general election. But of course, Sir Keir Starmer took office. It was his first duty, the first bill that he signed effectively across his table was the scrapping of that Rwanda deal when he got into office. So we'll never know whether Rwanda would have acted as a deterrent. The Conservatives certainly believe it would have been much more of a deterrent, sending many more people to Rwanda than actually this deal, which for the foreseeable seems to only be sending about 5% of those who arrive here back across the channel. So 95% of those arriving here, it seems, will not be subject of any kind of efforts to return them to France.
Mark, I think we're just seeing people leave that vessel for the first time, migrants with life jackets on them. Can you see the sort of demographics on board that boat? Does it look like overwhelmingly men to you?
You can probably see better than me because you're seeing through the long end of our lens down there. But I can assure you that as with the vast majority of these boats, yes, you'll get the odd woman and child, but the vast majority of those migrants are young men. About 85% of those on board the boats are adult males. The rest are women and children. And you'll see that most boats will contain maybe a couple of women and a couple of children, and that's for very cynical reasons, because then those on board a small boat can contact the rescue services and get, they believe, a more urgent and quick response because there are women and children on board that boat. And the same kind of thing is actually going to happen on the other side of the channel. You know, a lot has been made of the scheme by the French that this government keeps telling us they're about to enact, that pushback policy, where the French will circle a small boat if it's in shallow water and push it back to the beach. However, there was an intervention a few weeks back where the French waded into the water and punctured the small boat and then said the next time there was an opportunity to do exactly the same thing, that they were not going to do that because there was some women and children on board that boat. So what are the people smugglers going to do? Of course, they're going to ensure that every small boat has at least some women and children on board so that the French won't intervene, because the French will feel that it's too dangerous to intervene and to do that. As we speak, as more of these migrants are coming up the gangplank, up the gangway I should say, and it certainly looks like there's a lot on board this Border Force vessel. Ranger is just within a couple of hundred metres off the entrance to Dover Harbour now.
And Mark, I'm just looking at the weather forecast for the area, for the south of England, and it looks like we are due for at least a couple of weeks of sunny, pretty temperate weather. Almost a bad time to announce such a change of policy.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, if the government wants to invest in a surefire way of stopping the migrants, perhaps, they could invest in climate scientists to look at innovative ways of whipping up the wind in the channel, because that's the only way that you're guaranteed to prevent these small migrant boats coming across the channel. Now, what we're told is that tomorrow what is going to be good weather throughout the rest of today and overnight, and then by mid-morning tomorrow the winds are going to whip up again to the point where it's probably not passable, but then it's going to be on and off for a period of time. More good days than bad days, so yeah, expect thousands more to cross in the next week or two.
Gosh, well, Mark, thanks so much for bringing us those live pictures. The first arrivals in the United Kingdom, brought, of course, by British Border Force vessels to this country. One already docked, a second on its way. This, the day that that one-in, one-out deal goes into effect.
Yes, meanwhile, Angela Eagle is writing little letters and posting them on Twitter to Chris Philp, the battle of the words that Mark was describing a little bit earlier. She does say, I hope you're getting a nice tan, to Chris Philp, who's been spending the day in the Channel.
Or perhaps he is.
Perhaps he is, yes. But we're going to move on because it is, of course, schools out for summer, and the Children's Commissioner has warned thousands of children from low-income families are missing out on more than just learning. They're losing access to food and also vital holiday activities that support their well-being.
Well, new research shows that over 40% of parents are struggling with both holiday hunger and activity hunger.
Well, we're joined by the Children's Commissioner, Dame Rachel D'Souza, and the Director of Strategic Grants at John Lyons Charity, who've done this research, Anna Huddenut. Thank you very much indeed. Rachel, please tell us more about this research that's been done. It does sound very shocking that 40% of parents are worried about hunger in the holidays.
Yeah, look, we know it's a problem for many. The cost of living issues, real issue for lots of families. There's worries about food, but in some families, but also it's the cost of activities. You know, you often, if you're a working parent and you're keen for your child to have somewhere to go and somewhere to play, and when you see the cost of lots of these things, it's really, really difficult, and it can exclude certainly kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. And that's why I'm really pleased to be at London Zoo today. So I'm at London Zoo with 500 children, and John Lyons Charity are funding children from more disadvantaged backgrounds to have a really brilliant day. And that's what we need more of. When I talk to kids, that's what they say. They say they want somewhere to play, something that's sustainable. You know, they want to be able to have fun. They want to be off their computers, out of their bedrooms and out having fun. And that's what we need to back and support. So really proud to be here with John Lyons today and with 500 children in the zoo. You should be here. It's great fun.
No, it does sound incredible, and obviously it's so good to see charities get involved and give children the country over the sort of experiences that every child should be able to have.
Absolutely.
But thinking back to my childhood, I might have gone to a zoo once or twice, maybe, over the long extent of that childhood. Most of the time, during summer holidays, it wasn't some organised, paid-for activity. It would have been going out to a park, running around, climbing a tree. This stuff doesn't have to cost money. Is there also something that perhaps needs to be a greater sense of responsibility, perhaps, for parents to encourage their kids to go and do that stuff in the great outdoors that is, after all, free?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are different. I mean, for our parents, they talk to us a lot about worries about safety, and that's why I think our great British parks are so important, because often we've got park rangers, we've got groups of children able to go there together, and we can really make sure that kids are safe. But kids really want to be out playing, and I, like you know, I mean, I remember being a kid, and, you know, I'm one of four, and Mum would we'd go out in the morning and we'd be back for lunch and back for tea time, and we need to get back to sort of encouraging that risk and sort of fun and playing together and playing as groups so that children can thrive. And that's the way to learn. That's why brains develop, you know, and we want to do that. And I mean, I've surveyed more than 1 million children now, and I bet if I talk to all the 500 children here today with me, play and being able to go out to play and do, you know, and get out into the great outdoors is something they really want. But, you know, John Lyons Charity, I'm sure, will have something to say about
yeah, Anna, Anna, you're the director of Anna, you're Director of Strategic Grants at the John Lyons charity. I'm very interested to know, how you find children to support. Do children come to you? Do families come to you? Parents? I'm just thinking of some of our viewers and listeners who may have children and they can't afford for activities and excursions that they'd like to. I mean, how can they get support from a charity like yours?
Absolutely. So John Lyons Charity, we work in 9 boroughs in North West London. So we have quite a specific area that we work in. And the way that we support young people is by funding charities and local organisations that are based in those boroughs. So the charities that we fund, they're the ones delivering the work. And I think what parents and families up and down the country can look out for, it doesn't have to be the large-scale, big venues like London Zoo, which of course have their place but do cost a lot of money to go to. But some of the local organisations will be delivering similar activities for children in their locality. So it could be a drop-in football class or an arts or cookery or something like that they can drop into that's for free, that's being funded by an organisation like John Lyons Charity. And if you're looking out for those are the things that parents really do need to be aware of. And I think there's not enough awareness of what's available to them, particularly through government-funded schemes like HAF. I think there's a criticism that the funding that's available doesn't go far enough, and it isn't communicated properly to those that are eligible. So I think what we'd like to see are more people funding activities, but locally in communities, but also that parents know about them and that they can access them.
OK, well, Anna Hoddenot and indeed Rachel D'Souza, thanks so much for being with us here on Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Appreciate your time.
Yes, let us know at home how you're keeping your children, grandchildren busy this summer holiday. It's
perhaps
tough,
you'd like to take them on holiday and here's the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some hot air across parts of northern Africa at the moment, and as that's feeding its way northwards, it's going to push into Spain and Portugal. And here we're going to see temperatures rising through the next few days, could get into the low 40s at times. Otherwise, there will be a spell of showery rain affecting Gibraltar perhaps on Thursday, and a few showers across Italy and also into Greece and Turkey, but slightly fewer than I'm expecting through today. And the outlook for many is looking sunny and fairly hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
In London alone, 80,000 smartphones were stolen just last year. And organised crime groups are also stealing the devices in bulk, with violent robberies at phone shops.
So Mark White, Mark's our Home and Security Editor. He's put together this report and he's been given exclusive access to the flying squad's operation. So let's have a look.
We're on board with these officers from South East London as they prepare to rendezvous with the team from the Met's flying squad. Their target, an organised crime group suspected of involvement in a series of violent robberies. The gang's believed to have struck mobile phone shops in more than a dozen different locations, stuffing holdalls full of high-value smartphones in each raid. This is Rare Access. The flying squad is the Met's elite robbery and kidnap unit, dealing with some of the country's most hardened criminals.
Please open the door, it's going in!
Inside are the two suspects they're looking for.
We'll come down and speak to him just 2 seconds, all right? You're under arrest for mobile phone shops between March and June 2025.
As a drug sniffer dog arrives to help search the property, other officers find what they think is a small packet of drugs thrown from a bedroom window.
It's crack cocaine. Well, it's just after 6 a.m. and the two suspects at this address have had a rather rude awakening. Raids are also happening at another dozen addresses around this area.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 1:53 now. Could Camden Council, which is right in the heart of Sir Keir Starmer's own constituency, be going fully vegan?
Well, campaigners say the council is on track to ditch meat and dairy at official events, but not everyone's thrilled.
We're joined by a member of Camden's plant-based council's campaign, Kush Nacker. I imagine, Kush, that you are very pleased by this development. Do you know exactly where the council stands on this?
Yeah, so the council recognise that we're in a climate emergency and that actually what we're facing is climate breakdown unless actually we take quite serious actions to tackle it. And one of those is by switching away from eating meat and dairy and going towards plant-based foods, because actually our agriculture sector accounts for about a quarter of the greenhouse gas emissions that we produce. And those are heavily weighted towards red meat and dairy. Now, the action that the council has taken is actually largely symbolic. They're saying that they won't serve meat or dairy on any internal catering, but they don't actually get any of their meetings catered, to be honest. But what
so this is because they want everyone else to become a vegan?
Well, they're leading the way and setting an example of what a healthy diet would look like. One that can actually meet your needs, but also meet the needs of
Kush, you know that's
generations to come.
disputed. There are a lot of people who say that they, started not feeling all too well when they went completely vegan, and that they'd reincorporated dairy and reincorporated some meat and fish as a result.
Okay, so you've got some anecdotes, but actually the British Dietetic Association says that having a plant-based diet is compatible with all stages of life.
Compatible, but perhaps not thriving. I don't know. It just seems like an incredibly miserabilist attitude to say people can't have things. Wouldn't Camden Council be better off investing in startups that are growing lab-grown meat? I mean, isn't that the actual way that people are stopped going to be eating real cows and solve the climate crisis, if indeed there is a crisis? I mean, it's not going to be everyone choosing to go vegan tomorrow. It's not going to happen. You need different solutions.
Yeah, no one's expecting everything that everyone eats to change overnight, but you take a decision 3 times a day about what you put on your plate, and you can choose to pick something that is very, very carbon intensive and therefore far more contributing towards climate change and climate breakdown, or you can choose something that is nutritious, delicious.
I'm not sure my plate has that power, Kush.
I think a lot of people will choose the tasty option.
We're going to have to leave it there, but I really appreciate your view on all this.
I'm going to have a very tasty vegan lunch this afternoon.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say. Because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on the 6th of August. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Now, the government's one-in, one-out deal appears to be unravelling. Or is it? Well, it turns out that migrants could dodge deportation by claiming to be underage or that their human rights are under attack. This all as the first boatload arrives into Dover since that returns deal.
Well, that boat, the Typhoon, has now arrived and 81 migrants were on board. A second Border Force vessel, Ranger, is about to unload.
Elsewhere, there's tax trouble and it's looming as Chancellor Rachel Reeves faces pressure to break her promises and hike taxes yet again this autumn to fill a now £50 billion black hole.
Elsewhere in royal news, that Prince Harry hits back as he faces criticism after a bitter dispute with the charity he co-founded going public. Well, a source tells GB News he's devastated.
And the war rages on, with both sides continuing to blame each other. Meanwhile, Prince Harry turns on the referee. More details shortly.
Wow, and get this, Oxford Street shoppers in central London told mind the grab and guard your phone. Is this what it's come to?
Well, Bridlington, in other news, perhaps more cheery news, is turning up the tinsel. Yes, in August, the Yorkshire coastal town is going full Christmas today. But what's behind this summer sparkle?
Merry Bridmas. It's 21 degrees here in Bridlington and the sun is shining, but everybody's in the festive spirit. Tune in later where I'll be speaking to Santa Claus about this massive event.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? People celebrating Christmas a tad early.
You're not a fan of this.
Well, I just think it's a bit much, isn't it?
You don't
August, this summer.
Lean into the season's joy.
I mean, I'm being a Grinch. I mean, I'm not usually the Grinch in this duo.
To be fair, I mean, normally what we see is a lot of shops at about September time starting to sell the Christmas crackers and to get out the Christmas. As soon as back to school is over, it's the Christmas season's stock.
But I think we want to have a look at a statue now, actually.
Oh, yeah?
A rather large statue of a mermaid, and we've had to cover up part of the mermaid, apparently.
No. This is... Why have we covered this? It's fine. It's tasteful. It's artistic.
No, you're not allowed nipples on daytime TV, Tom.
That's outrageous.
Anyway, this is in Denmark, and it's going to be removed from public view because critics have called it ugly and pornographic, and it is a man's hot dream of what a woman should look like.
Well, for anyone watching this on television who, I'm sorry to say, will not be able to see the true majesty
and on radio even less.
And on radio even less. You can go to gbnews.com where there is a story written up about this debate because it does seem to be
you can't go throughout your day without seeing, you know, some boobs.
Look, it's natural, it's healthy. It's, I fundamentally disagree with the Ofcom guidance here. I think it's a shame that we've had to
cover her up.
We've had to cover her up. We can't have a proper discussion.
Okay, but this statue is 13 feet tall.
Cracking.
And she's in this pose, and some people are saying it's just far too sexual, Tom.
Look, I think it's art, and I think that Michelangelo's David can have his nipples out. Why can't this? Why can't this statue?
The breasts look slightly surgically enhanced, I suggest, which of course is not a crime.
Look,
and they look like they may not be very natural in how they move.
They don't move. It's a statue. It's a statue. A mermaid has large breasts. Why is this a scandal? Why is this a scandal?
I mean, I don't want to sound prudish, but it is a little bit much. It is a little bit much.
Look, I mean, all throughout the ancient world...
I mean, you wouldn't be able to take your eyes off it when you walk past. I guess that's the idea.
You go to Rome or Greece and you can't move for naked statues. It's completely normal. It's fine. I don't know.
Yes, but they made things smaller. They made things smaller, though, didn't they? If you know what I mean.
On the men, yes, but there are, of course, protruding nipples on female statues.
So you're
in
the Free the Nipple campaign.
Free the nipple, why not?
Well, let us know your thoughts. I mean, obviously, it's not the most important thing of the day to discuss, but I think it's a sign of our times, isn't it? On the one hand, we're the most sexually liberal we've ever been, and porn is absolutely everywhere. On the other hand, you have people wanting to take down a statue because the boobs are a little bit big.
Well, and you also have censorship of the internet, not just for things that are mildly pornographic, but also political speech now. So I think you've got an overzealous kickback effect.
Well, perhaps. Let us know your thoughts. gbnews.com/yourSay. Well, let's get to the headlines with Tatiana.
Emily, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Hundreds more migrants have crossed the English Channel illegally today, a day after the government announced the signing of its migrant returns deal with France. The Border Force vessel Typhoon picked up the first group of at least 60 migrants just after 11:30 a.m. It's now arrived to Dover Harbour. A second Border Force vessel, Ranger, picked up another group of migrants and is also about to unload. It says illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation, but Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition's suggestions that that's the case. Under the terms of the agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say that they're under the age of 18. This is just one of the potential loopholes which could be exploited and threatens to undermine the government's attempt to smash the gangs. Shadow Culture Minister Joe Robertson spoke to GB News Breakfast.
I think people have become very, very wary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people. One in, one out. I mean, it said that if it does what it says on the tin, one in, one out isn't going to reduce the number of migrants in this country, because one in means there'll be one out the other side. So I don't think it's going to work. We don't even have numbers. The government aren't even telling us how many people will be deported under this scheme. So if they can't even give us the numbers, how do we know whether it's successful or not?
Prince Harry is facing criticism from the charity watchdog after a dispute at a charity he co-founded was allowed to spill into the public eye. The Charity Commission has issued a formal action plan for Sentebale, the Duke's charity supporting children and young people in southern Africa. It flagged leadership confusion and poor governance, but found no evidence of bullying or misconduct by Prince Harry, despite claims from the charity's current chair. A spokesperson for Harry says the findings clear him, but claims the real damage will be felt by the children's charity that the charity supports. Elsewhere, a 56-year-old man who'd been on the run for 2 years to avoid being recalled to prison for a separate offence has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of an elderly dog walker. Roy Barkley has been sentenced at Ipswich Crown Court to life with a minimum term of 25 years for murdering 57-year-old grandmother Anita Rose, who'd been out walking her dog in Brantham in Suffolk in July last year. Judge Martin Levitt described Barkley as someone prone to dangerous outbursts at the slightest confrontation. The Prime Minister says he does not recognise figures that suggest the government will need to raise taxes in the autumn budget. It's after Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. In a warning, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research said the Chancellor is now on course to miss targets and spending promises as finances plunge deeper into the red. The report has fuelled speculation over how the government may look to boost tax revenues in the autumn, including mounting rumours of a possible wealth tax.
Some of the figures that have been put out are not figures that I recognise, but the budget won't be until later in the year, and that's why we'll have the forecast then, and we'll set out our plans. What's really important is that I'm very clear about our focus, which will be on living standards and making sure that people feel better off, partly because more money is coming into their pocket in the first place through better wages, and partly because we're bearing down on costs like mortgages and other costs to everyday families.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin is meeting with US President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow. It comes as Donald Trump has set a deadline of Friday for Russia to agree to end the Ukraine war or face new sanctions. After arriving in Moscow today, Mr. Witkoff was met by presidential special representative Kirill Dmitriev. Donald Trump has described the meet as pivotal in determining whether the United States should go ahead with new sanctions against Russia. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3310 and €1.1471. The price of gold, £2,526.20 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is currently at 9,162 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
It's 2:10. Good afternoon, Britain. And an update from the English Channel this afternoon. Hundreds more migrants have arrived into the UK following the announcement of this one-in, one-out deal.
Let's get the very latest with our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, how many have you counted?
Well, 81 on board that first Border Force vessel, the Catamaran Typhoon. 81 on a single migrant boat. That's vastly overcrowded and clearly very dangerous. The second Border Force vessel, Ranger, is just into harbour now, so it's about to begin unloading. And we can speak live now, actually, to the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, who was out in the middle of the channel. You saw those boats as they came across. Tell us what you saw earlier.
Well, I came out to the channel today because the government claimed their deal yesterday would deter crossings, so I wanted to come out here and find out if it's true. And it's not true, because we have seen migrant crossings, as you have said. We encountered 2 boats within just half an hour, as you say, very heavily overloaded. The French were simply ushering them, escorting them across into British waters. They made no attempt to stop them whatsoever, even though other countries like the Belgians, the Australians, do stop these boats. The French escorted them across a dangerous shipping lane. I saw a large tanker ship having to change course to avoid the migrant dinghy. Then what we saw in the middle of the channel were 2 Border Force vessels, the vessels that are now behind us in port, come to collect the illegal immigrants, which they did. And the French captain then had the cheek to ask for his life jackets back. We caught that on the ship radio, so he can give those life jackets to a load of other illegal immigrants in the future. It seems to me the French are facilitating this illegal immigration, not stopping it, which I think is disgraceful.
Well, I mean, in terms of the French not really intervening in terms of stopping the migrant boats, escorting them over the channel, they've been doing that for years. They were doing that under your watch. I don't recall you criticising them very much when they were doing that previously.
Well, I think we've always said the French should do a lot more, and escorting boats across, in my view, is completely wrong. And I know previous governments made that point. But the only way to really stop this is to remove every single illegal migrant who arrives in the UK. So just in a few minutes, we're going to see probably another 70 or 80 migrants getting disembarked from just down there in the docks below us. Now, if every single one of those was immediately and without judicial process removed, either to their home country if possible, or to a third country like Rwanda, pretty quickly they wouldn't bother making the crossing. Problem is, the Labour government's plan is only to return, it would appear, at most 6% of those, which means 94% of the people getting off that border force cutter down there are going to be allowed to stay in the UK. And that is clearly no deterrent at all, which is why they have continued to cross today, despite Labour's deal.
Now, the government would argue, and indeed the government is, Dame Angela Eagle, the Home Office Minister, arguing today that, you know, to judge the deterrent factor of this scheme on the very first day of operation is rather unfair, to say the least, given that she says the day the Rwanda scheme was signed, 671 migrants crossed on that particular day, and in fact over subsequent days some 2,000 odd crossed, very significant numbers that haven't been beaten since at that time of year.
Well, first of all, this year so far, 2025, has been the worst year in history for illegal crossings. That is down to this Labour government. Secondly, the Rwanda scheme, while it was signed, it was never actually commenced because the last government had to work through all of those legal challenges. We had to pass a new law through Parliament. That was eventually done, and by the summer of last year, by July last year, the Rwanda scheme was ready to go. That would have seen 100% of illegal arrivals getting removed. That would have acted as a deterrent. But what did Keir Starmer do? He cancelled it days before it was due to start, with no replacement plan at all. And that is why we have seen numbers surging, and this year so far has been the worst ever. That is down to Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper and this weak Labour government.
But on Angela Eagle's substantive point there of, look, you know, judging it on the first day is probably not the fairest way of trying to ascertain whether this is going to work or not as a deterrent, that it should be judged perhaps in the medium to long term.
Well, it was announced yesterday. If it has a deterrent effect, it should have kicked in straight away. And, you know, if you want to take a medium-term view, this year so far, you know, we're now in August, has been the worst in history on Labour's watch. And this plan they've got is also, it's got more holes than a Swiss cheese. You know, if somebody claims to be under 18, they don't get returned to France. If somebody lodges a modern slavery claim, they don't get returned. And if someone makes a human rights claim, even if the Home Office certified as clearly unfounded, the person doesn't get returned to France. So the human rights lawyers will make mincemeat of the government using all of those various loopholes, and I'm very sceptical any significant number of people are going to get returned, which means it won't be a deterrent, and unfortunately this won't work. Labour made a massive mistake by cancelling Rwanda before it even started, with no credible replacement.
So what are you going to do then? Because clearly in the years that the Conservatives were in office and small boat migrants have been an issue, nothing was done in substantive terms that actually made any difference to the numbers. I know you said they'd gone down 30% or so after the Rwanda scheme was announced, but actually you know, that was kind of year on year. They were up one year, they were down the next. What are you going to do? I mean, the European Convention of Human Rights, you've been arguing as to whether you're going to stay in or come out. What is your decision on that?
Well, first of all, we've said that we should disapply, repeal the Human Rights Act in relation to all immigration matters straight away. We put that to a vote in Parliament a few weeks ago, but Labour voted against it. What that would do is stop judges here in the UK from allowing dangerous foreign criminals, illegal immigrants and others with no right to be here to remain in the UK. We think that's wrong. We think those people should be removed from the country, and repealing the Human Rights Act for immigration matters would enable that. Now, we may need to go further and come out of the ECHR entirely. We've got Lord Wolfson, one of the country's most eminent barristers, looking at that right now. He'll report back in just a few weeks' time, and if we need to leave the ECHR in order to make sure every single foreign criminal is deported, every illegal immigrant is removed upon arrival, and others with no right to be here are removed. If we need to leave the ECHR to do that, we will, and that announcement is coming in just a few weeks' time.
What about the idea of Nightingale camps for all of these asylum seekers who are here? There's a great deal of anger right across the country at the hotel policy begun under your government that still continues, reduced but still continues. And now, of course, this government wants to put people into the heart of communities right across the country by putting them in HMOs and other housing in communities right across the country. What about actually disused army bases and alike, getting Nightingale structures up there that can house them? Doesn't that make more sense?
Well, I think it does, and in fact the last government set up a former army camp called Napier Barracks just down the road from here in Folkestone to house, I think it was about 400 people who had entered the country illegally, illegal immigrants. So I think those kind of solutions can work, and they should be used instead of hotels, because hotels are costing a fortune, you know, billions of pounds a year of hard-earned taxpayers' money. But the real solution is to remove illegal arrivals immediately when they get here, without delay, without court process, and then the problem of housing them won't arise. And the deterrent effect of removing everybody immediately upon arrival means others in the future won't bother attempting the crossing, which is exactly what Australia found about 12 or 13 years ago when they took the same approach. They had actually an even bigger problem than we do with illegal maritime arrivals. It was over 50,000 a year. They started removing all of those arrivals to a little island called Nauru, and within a few months the crossing stopped entirely, because why bother crossing if you're going to wind up in Nauru? The Rwanda principle is exactly the same as that. It worked in Australia, it would work here, and then you won't need to have accommodation of any kind because the illegal arrivals will stop.
Now, I know you've been critical of the French government for escorting boats across the Channel, for giving migrants life jackets. Effectively, you and many people feel that's tantamount to enabling those migrants to cross the English Channel. What about the policy that we're told will come and will come soon of pushing the migrant boats back onto the shore that the French maritime forces will enact? Surely that's to be welcomed.
Well, I mean, the government have been talking about that for quite a long time, for months and months now, and yet nothing has happened on the ground. So to be honest, I'll believe it when I see it.
OK, Chris Philp, thank you very much. I know you've got to dash off, but thanks for speaking to us live on GB News.
Thank you.
The Shadow Home Secretary there, who was out in the middle of the Channel today, just hours after the government announced the signing of that deal between France and the UK that would allow for a partial return of these small boat migrants. And he saw, of course, 2 boats already coming across the English Channel.
OK, well, Mark White, thanks so much for being there for us and conducting that interview as well. Really interesting stuff.
Yes, very interesting indeed. Well, we are going to move on, though, because there's trouble afoot when it comes to the public finances. Yes, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has been warned that she will have to break her promises and raise taxes come the autumn budget to plug a £50 billion black hole.
Well, it all comes as new figures reveal that 300,000 more savers or thereabouts will have to pay more tax on their savings interest.
Well, joining us in the studio is GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster. Catherine, I mean, have we heard from the government on this? Do they have anything to say? I mean, it's not good news, is it?
No, it's not good news. Of course, it is just an estimate. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but 50 billion, a black hole, is a very big number. That's 40 billion and then a 10 billion headroom that Rachel Reeves likes to have. It is more than double the £22 billion black hole which they told us last year they'd inherited from the Tories, that necessitated that one-off budget, as they said it was, with £40 billion of tax rises. Now, the Prime Minister was talking to broadcasters a little bit earlier. He was asked about this very specifically, and you won't be amazed to hear that he said, well, we will make decisions in due course. We're not going to make the budget now. He said he didn't recognise some of the figures, but he did say that the government's focus is on improving living standards. They used to talk about getting growth. Growth was going to be what gave them all this money that we don't have. But it does look like tax rises are going to have to come. And of course, that is not going to help anybody's living standards at all. But yeah, what are they going to raise, given that they have ruled out income tax, national insurance and VAT, which is 2/3 of the whole tax take?
And this is very clearly Plan B for the Chancellor, because we saw what her Plan A was, which was to provide what a lot of people said were very sensible-looking cuts to a ballooning welfare budget. But she's sort of been held to ransom by her own Labour backbenchers who've cancelled Plan A. They've said you can't take any money at all out of the benefits budget in the way that that's expanding massively. And so instead, she's sort of having to revert to a course of action she really did not want to do, potentially breaking those manifesto commitments.
Yes, exactly. So they haven't had the growth. They used to say they were going to have the highest growth in the G7. I think we did have that in the last quarter, but we'll get more figures in a day or two. But our growth projections are pretty flat at about 1% for the next few years. That is not going to deliver. And they've had, frankly, a nightmare within their own party, because billions of this black hole are because Labour backbenchers turn round over the winter fuel allowance and over what are genuinely very needed welfare reductions, given the ballooning cost of the welfare bill, and said, no, we're not going to tolerate this. So she's between a rock and a hard place now, because I think they will have had a taste of that. OK, a few Labour backbenchers had the whip suspended, but because the majority is so huge, weirdly, it means that many of them feel empowered to just turn around and say no, because the government does not have jobs for all of them to keep them in line.
Well, there you go. What's happened to loyalty, eh? Catherine Forster, thank you very much indeed, GBNews political correspondent. Now, we do have another giveaway for you, and this time it is to live mortgage or rent-free for a year on us and get a bonus £5,000 in your bank. Here are the details.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's right, we'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 28 minutes past 2. Now get this. The retailing giant Currys has told Oxford Street shoppers not to use their phones on the pavements when out and about, all in a bid to curb phone theft.
Yeah, I'm stuck on the pavement there. It reads, mind the grab. And it follows research commissioned by the retailer, which found 88% of Brits view phone snatching as a significant problem in large cities, such as our capital city, London.
But really, has it come to this? People having to be told to not use their mobile telephones lest they be stolen on one of the busiest shopping streets in the country.
I think so. Well, we're joined by former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. Now, Peter, a lot of the time when crime is mentioned, very clever people tell us that they have this data that proves that actually, contrary to your belief and what you see with your own eyes and ears, crime is down in the capital. Well, if it is, then why are Currys having to do this?
Always exercise huge caution when dealing with crime statistics. Certain senior police officers get promoted on manipulating them to make them look favourable. The fact of the matter is there are nearly 100 phone thefts a day in London, in the Metropolitan Police area. It's an absolute epidemic of crime. And I really applaud this initiative by Currys, the electrical retailer, and others who've taken part in it, because anything we can do to make people aware of the level of crime and how to avoid becoming a victim gets my full support.
And yet, isn't it the most depressing thing in the world that our pavements are being littered with graffiti from a shop telling us to change our behaviour because the police can't get their act together and imprison the absolute cowards who go around and can't earn an honest living for themselves and instead steal our technology?
Indeed, as a state of the nation statement, it's a very gloomy thing. Very gloomy indeed. But this is what happens when you have over-educated, pseudo-intellect police officers running the show, and they, in recent decades, have quite simply withdrawn police officers from patrolling, thereby surrendering the streets to the criminals. And that's where we're at.
And this is the thing, I mean, even if you can find data to show that crime has gone down in one area or the other, I think that if that data is true, it is because people are adapting their behaviour. I mean, of course, this is anecdotal. In my experience, I no longer will enter a tube carriage if it's empty, for fear that someone could come in and I'm left alone with a scary man, essentially. I will avoid walking in certain areas pretty much altogether. I'll hold my phone close to my chest, or, you know, not have it out at all when out and about. And those are changes that people are making that even a few years ago, perhaps they weren't.
And it grieves me sore to say, well done, Emily. They are exactly the kind of steps that you need to take to prevent becoming a victim of crime. Once again, it's a very sad indictment upon this nation and where we're at. But there are so many unscrupulous people out there, from thieves to people who will harass women and do much, much worse to women, that we all need to bear some sort of responsibility on keeping ourselves safe. And until or unless we get a police service which can almost be reimagined by the wheel so that they patrol the streets, prevent crime, investigate it properly and lock up bad people, this is where we're going to have to remain.
It's a sad indictment of society today, I suppose. But Peter Blexley, thanks for spelling it out so clearly for us. Former Scotland Yard detective there. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, and do let us know if you're living in the capital and you have absolutely none of these fears, because there are people out there who do say, you know what, it's actually all right.
That being said, when I moved to London 7 or 8 years ago, I got my phone nicked immediately.
Oh.
Haven't had it nicked since. So maybe from my perspective...
You're harder now, Tom.
Oh, maybe. Or maybe I just don't waggle my phone around so much.
Maybe. Anyway, Prince Harry, he's in a bit of trouble. He's hit back, though, because he's faced criticism after a bit of dispute with a charity he co-founded went public, this dispute. A source has told GB News he's devastated. We're going to bring you the details.
Thank you. The headlines at 2:30. Illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation, but Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition's suggestions that that's the case. The Charity Commission has found no evidence of bullying or harassment at a charity set up by Prince Harry, but it has found that an internal dispute at Centre Barley severely impacted the charity's reputation. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. And a 56-year-old man who'd been on the run for 2 years to avoid being recalled to prison for a separate offence has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of a dog walker. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more news in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many, as we go through the rest of today, it's looking largely fine. There'll be some decent, warm, sunny breaks around, but there is some wet weather that's going to push in later on. That's because there's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic, but that's going to make its way gradually southeastwards as we go through the next 24 hours. For the time being, though, like I said, it's a fine picture for the majority of us. Some decent sunshine on offer, perhaps the cloud bubbling up a little bit as we go into the afternoon, and there may be some high-level cloud around, so the sunshine may turn a little milky, but it's going to stay dry for the vast majority of us. And with the sunshine, temperatures a little bit higher than yesterday, and feeling it with the lighter winds, temperatures peaking around 25 Celsius towards the south. As we go towards the evening, we are going to see the winds starting to pick up a little bit and a little bit more cloud pushing across western parts of Scotland and across parts of Northern Ireland, perhaps a few outbreaks of rain by around 5 or 6 o'clock. Further east and south, though, clinging on to that fine weather well into the evening. So some glimmers of sunshine to look forward to as we go through the end of the day. Yes, the cloud may be a bit thicker in some places, but on the whole, it's staying fine for a little while yet. Overnight, however, that weather system does make its way in, so wet weather pushing across parts of Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, and some of that rain feeding into parts of northern and western Wales and western and northern England as well as we go through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Towards the southeast, staying dry with some clear skies, a bit of a fresh night for some, but still temperatures generally holding up in the mid-teens Celsius. Then through tomorrow, that front continues its way southeastwards. It will bring some heavy bursts of rain across some high ground towards the west, but it breaks up and fizzles out as it moves through. So towards the southeast, not really seeing any of the rain associated with that. And behind the front, we are going to see a scattering of showers pushing their way in. Temperatures may be down a degree or so compared to today, but feeling warm in any sunny breaks.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M90, southbound restrictions persist due to animals on the road. Resurfacing on the M4 eastbound at junction 48, Hendy closes the exit slip road with diversions. The M60 clockwise in Salford is disrupted by a collision, closing one lane. The M25 clockwise exit slip at junction 21A in Hertfordshire is partially shut due to a load spillage. Expect 50-minute delays on the M6 southbound in Staffordshire from an ongoing incident. And on the trains, ScotRail has bus replacements between Inverness and Kyle of Lochalsh or Wick. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It was 37 minutes past 2 a minute ago.
It was.
And it's going to be 38 minutes past 2 in about 20 seconds. But
do you know what? I'll tell you, something annoys me about Tom. When you say something like, it's 22 minutes till 3, and I'm thinking, now I'm sure all of our viewers and listeners can work out what that is, but it'd be so much easier just to say it's 2:38.
Yeah, it would be.
It's 22 minutes to 3 o'clock, or it's 17 minutes to 2.
But I don't know, I just feel like up until past, I want to say it's this many minutes past the hour.
Yes.
And after past, I want to say it's this many minutes to an hour, because it's the shortest journey for the minute hand to get to the 12.
It's just one of those things I'm going to miss about you, Tom. But Prince Harry, yes, he's lost his battle for control of the charity he set up in his mother's memory, as a watchdog has now come out and criticised him for his part in a damaging bullying row.
Yes, a spokesperson for Prince Harry says that the findings clear him, but claims that real damage will have been felt by the children of the charity that the charity supports.
So what's next for him? Well, good thing we've got our royal correspondent with us, Cameron Walker. Cameron, I feel like I haven't seen you for a little while.
I know.
But you're straight back at it.
I am.
What's going on with all this then?
Gosh, well, both sides are still blaming each other, I think is the first point. Let's go right back to March, where this bitter public row erupted between the chair of the charity Centre Barley, which Prince Harry co-founded in 2006 to help young children in southern Africa living with HIV and AIDS. The battle was internal to start with, but then the Times reported that Harry had resigned as patron in solidarity with all the other trustees who were all against the chair. Then this erupted into the chair doing a TV interview. She did an interview with the Financial Times as well, Dr. Sophie Chanduka. Then Prince Harry's PR machine went into overdrive and started putting out all these briefings and different statements. Then the UK charity watchdog thought enough is enough, we need to launch an investigation. And today they have announced the findings of that investigation. So that is what is going on. I think the biggest criticism of Prince Harry, the trustees and the chair is the fact that they allowed all of this to play out in public in the first place, because the Charity Commission says it's not only damaged the reputation of the charity and undone all the good work it's done, it has also damaged the integrity of the whole UK charity sector. So very, very strong words there.
Gosh, that is very strong.
Really?
The entire charity sector, that's a bit harsh, maybe.
In the United Kingdom. Well, so Harry's spokesperson, let's say, hits back at that. So he says their report falls troublingly short in many regards, primarily the fact that the consequences of the current chair's actions will not be borne by her, but by the children who rely on Centre Barley's support. The chairwoman, Dr. Sophie Chanduka, says the unexpected media campaign that was launched by those who resigned, i.e. Prince Harry, has caused incalculable damage and offers a glimpse of the unacceptable behaviours into their private lives. Now, I've spoken to a source very close to Prince Harry, and he says he is absolutely devastated by all of this, and he sees it as a hostile takeover of his life's work. So no way back for Prince Harry to Centre Barley. What's he going to do now was the question you asked at the start, Emily and Tom. Well, he's still got the Invictus Games. He's still got the Halo Trust. I suspect he's going to be trying to do more charity work. But the Netflix deal's drying up. That's ending later on this year. Meghan seems to be going on her own journey with As Ever, her commercial brands, launching jams and flowers.
Have you tried her rosé yet?
I haven't. Do you know what? I really want to try her rosé and all the food and bring it all for you guys to try as well.
Well, when you get your hands on it, this show.
Well, we can't because it's not available in the United Kingdom. You can only get it in the United States.
Cameron, you know what that means?
I know.
We're going to have to send you out to Montecito.
Oh, it would be so hard, Tom. I mean, I'll take one for the team and be sent to LA to try Meghan's rosé wine, which I think she's just launched a new brand actually as well.
But this is such a difficult issue, though, getting back to the charity, because There is clearly a big personality clash that has gone on. There's been a war and a grappling for control, completely unedifying, in an organisation that was meant to help children. And instead, they were bickering amongst themselves. Does the Charity Commission lay blame on one party or another?
No, it lays blame on all of them for not having proper governance within the charity itself. So I think the translation from a Charity Commission, they say there was serious governance failures, a confusion over delegated powers, no clear way to formally process complaints or resolve differences. I think what that means in plain English is there was a huge power struggle behind the scenes between the chair, thinking she had perhaps more powers than Prince Harry thought she did, and the other trustees. They basically wanted to pivot funding to try and get funding from the United States, and there was disagreements around that. That's what it all sparked from. But then a source close to Harry told me that the chair tried to install herself as basically this executive chair, which means she can pay herself a salary and also have all these executive powers. Now, that does happen in the US charities, but there's nothing in UK law that allows that to happen. But I also understand that Dr. Sophie Chanduka is a private, is one of the biggest, or the second biggest donors, that's the word I was looking for, to the charity. And also she turned down a salary from Prince Harry before all of this row erupted, because Prince Harry wanted to give her one, apparently, because she'd done so much voluntary work with the charity.
Interesting. And while this is all going on, I do note that Meghan is just living her life. She's put out a new post today celebrating her own birthday, saying how much she loves her husband, her friends and her family and things like this. She's been trying out some beautiful new restaurants in LA, and she's broadcasting all the success of As Ever, which of course is the umbrella for the wine, the jam, the whatever else. So she's just sort of ignoring this kind of drama that's going on the Harry side of things.
She is living the American dream. She's living the Californian dream. She's been given this massive platform. She's launched her own business. Her passion is clearly lifestyle. That's what she did before she met Prince Harry with the TIG, the lifestyle brand. And she's, being a mother to her 2 kids. I'm sure
she's given up on the whole humanitarian political stuff.
Well, it's certainly not her priority at the moment if you look at her Instagram, Emily. So I suspect she's focusing on her lifestyle brands. Prince Harry, meanwhile, I think is perhaps slightly lost trying to find out what his niche is. And unfortunately for him, his niche is being a member of the royal family and doing charity work, which he stepped away from. So he needs to find a way to carve his way back into philanthropy, perhaps.
Very interesting stuff. Well, Cameron Walker, thank you for bringing us all of that royal roundup for Harry and Meghan and their various excursions.
Her California life does look absolutely perfect. Yes. Well, if you're in search of some holiday sun, but in Europe, here's the travel weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some hot air across parts of northern Africa at the moment, and as that's feeding its way northwards, it's going to push into Spain and Portugal. And here we're going to see temperatures rising through the next few days, could get into the low 40s at times. Otherwise, there will be a spell of showery rain affecting Gibraltar perhaps on Thursday, and a few showers across Italy and also into Greece and Turkey, but slightly fewer than I'm expecting through today. And the outlook for many is looking sunny and fairly hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain.
We've got lots more coming up on today's show, including, this is bizarre, Bridlington is turning up the tinsel for you, but in August, yes, this Yorkshire coastal town is going full-on Christmas today. Why?
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 12 minutes to 3, and Emily would have said it's 48 minutes past 2. But after we sort of had that discussion a few minutes ago...
Well, after I picked on you for it.
There have been a few comments on gbnews.com/yoursay, and it seems quite a few people actually agree with me, which I'm surprised by.
Yeah, so I think people need to look inside their consciences and think about whether they want to be on Tom's side on this one.
Yeah,
you're letting me down.
Frankly, it's misogynistic, and indeed...
Yeah, you're all sexist.
And you're picking on a pregnant woman. How dare you?
Yeah, how dare you? You'll miss me when I'm gone. Bringing new life into the world.
Anyway, it is now 49 minutes past 2. Not yet. And can you believe that there are people celebrating Christmas in August?
Yes, it's all happening in Bridlington, where they're decking the halls a few months early. Shall we speak to Anna Riley, who's there on the scene for us? Anna, what on earth is going on? It's August.
Well, Merry Bridmas and welcome to Bridlington, where Christmas has come early. We're on the beach here and they've certainly decked the halls. And who better to speak to about Bridmas than Bridlington's very own Santa Claus. Good afternoon, Santa Claus.
Good to see you.
Just tell us what Bridmas is all about.
Well, Bridmas is about celebrating everything about Bridlington and what's happening in the December month about Christmas time, all the events that we're having. There's the Spa Theatre putting on the pantomime, there's the Christmas market, and there's various locations where I will be appearing and meeting people, and yeah, it's just all about everything that's happening around here.
So if people are thinking, you know, Christmas come early, this is a bit strange. It's all about, isn't it, boosting tourism, because how difficult can it be in winter months for not just Bridlington but all seaside coasts?
Yeah, all seaside towns can be during the winter months, so where better to do a event like this in the middle of summer where you've got the public here already, so let them know that this is what's going to happen in 6 months time or 3 months time or whatever it is, and yeah, we've got the crowd, we've got the audience, let's do it. So.
And this has been going on all day today. Just tell us what's been happening.
Yes, they set up from about 5 a.m. this morning. There's been all the events going on the beach. We've had fire eaters just down here. We've had had a choir, there's a brass band just down the road, there's a food market in the town, there's a film being shown in the Spa Theatre, which I think is Home Alone. And yeah, they can see the kids are just climbing on the sleighs, messing about, getting the photos taken. It's just been so busy, it's just been amazing.
What's it like when you see people enjoying themselves, and especially the children coming up and seeing Santa in August?
Well, it took us about 45 minutes to get from one end of the promenade to here, just because kids photo with Santa. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun. It really is. And it's lovely on a sunny day like this, but just to see the kids having a right laugh, it's just fantastic.
And this is the second year now?
It's the second year, and it won't be the last, because we've been talking about it, and Santa needs somewhere to come on holiday, so Bridlington it is.
Definitely, and just show us your watch if we can see. Got a fantastic watch of Santa Claus. You can tell whether you're on the naughty or nice list, and I was on the nice list, so hopefully I'm having some Christmas presents
it was only
this
an 8.
December.
You could have got a bit, you know, you can go a little bit higher.
Need a bit more.
Yeah.
Need to get a bit nicer, but I'm still getting some presents. Thank you, Santa Claus. That's brilliant.
Nice
so certainly, if you're still in the area, get on down to Bridlington and celebrate Bridmas.
Oh, Brits
excellent.
are so eccentric, aren't we?
I absolutely love it. Anna, I have to say, what does it say on your hat?
It says, "This elf needs a gin."
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Well, we will let you go off and have that gin. Anna Riley, thanks so much for joining us live from Bridlington.
Fantastic stuff. Well, there you go. I'm feeling less Grinch-like now. That's cheered me up. You know, it's all for the children.
Yeah.
Well, it is Martin Daubney up next, and I wonder what he's got in store. Martin, tell us.
Well, this elf also needs a gin, but I've got to wait until 6 o'clock. On a serious point, is the one-in, one-out deal the worst deal in history? The French get to choose who comes our way. Asylum seeker lawyers will be stopping anybody go back the other way if they're under 18 or claim that their human rights are being abused. We've got to pay for the entire transportation system, both in and out. Is it any wonder that today, for the first time since December 2016, the deepest days of Brexit, immigration is the #1 priority of British voters? When are our parliamentarians going to be waking up to the fact, unless they fix our broken borders, it's them that are going to be sunk? It is them, as the Tories before them, who couldn't stop the boats. If you can't smash the gangs, political oblivion awaits. They're as driftwood on the beaches of Britain. Wake up to the reality. Immigration is totally out of control. These plans aren't working. And unless something happens drastically soon, we're heading for a political revolution. That's talking on the show 3 till 6. But first, here's your wonderful weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours or so, we're going to say goodbye to the largely fine picture that we've had across much of the country through today, and instead we're going to have some wet weather arriving from the northwest. It's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic that's going to make its way southeastwards, but like I said, we do still have plenty of fine weather around at the moment, and so it's a fine evening for most of us. Some late glimmers of sunshine across the bulk of the country, but then overnight rain pushes its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, and some rain feeding into parts of northern and western England and Wales. Ahead of the rain towards the southeast, it's staying dry with some clear skies. Could turn a little fresh here, but for most, nowhere near as fresh or as cool as it was last night. A relatively mild start to the day. Then as we go through the day, we are going to see that cloud and rain gradually making its way southeastwards. It'll have already started to clear away from parts of Scotland by the time that we get to around 7 or 8. And so there'll be a bit more of a showery theme here, even some bright or sunny spells developing once that front has pushed through. A similar story across Northern Ireland, scattered showers, some sunny breaks, but across northern England, Wales, parts of the West Midlands and down towards the southwest of England, here the front will be lingering, and so it's looking quite cloudy and quite damp. Ahead of the front in the southeast, clinging onto the fine weather for a little while yet. It is going to turn cloudier here as we go into the afternoon, but the front breaks up as it makes its way across the country, so barely any rain arriving here. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers, some bright sunny spells, a bit less sunshine on offer than today, and slightly stronger winds, so not feeling quite as warm. As we go later on, we are going to continue with some showery bursts across a few places, a little bit more showery rain perhaps reaching the far southeast, but not a huge amount, and then there will be some clear skies as as we go overnight into Friday. Into the weekend, and there will be some wet, blustery weather towards the far north of the UK. Elsewhere, many places looking fine and temperatures rising.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.